Hey, you guys, I am so sorry. I am super duper late, but I was just in the throes of a very fascinating and important conversation. And so I thank y'all for having shown up on time. And I hope you guys forgive me for being super duper late. But I think this is an interesting conversation as well, which is there value in removing the label of Black off of ourselves? You were going into it yesterday, Patchy, but can you kind of break down your thought process? And I'm just going to listen for a minute so I can get the full spectrum of what you're trying to say.
Okay. Hello, everyone. First of all, but basically, growing up, in the black community, being me also thinking I was black because that's what I was told. Personally, I just thought it was a label. Didn't think much of it. But as I grew up, I realized that this term had a meaning. It just wasn't based upon how you look and a labeling of how you looked. It had all these attributes behind it. When I looked into the history, they were all negative, and the only positive things benefited whites back during slavery. So the question is, did it change much from then to now? And well, according to how my upbringing, a lot of black people's upbringing in America, not talking about any other place, no, it's a lot of negative things associated to the title, and people still use it as such, and they believe that those things is who they are. That's why a lot of people will say they can't do something because they're black, even though they haven't even tried. So what I started to notice was, even when I called myself black, I didn't feel that way. But for those who did, when I convinced them to remove that out their mind, things changed for them for the better. They start feeling they could actually achieve goals that to me were just normal, you know. So that's why I'm saying that it's such a negative history behind the term. Even if we want to go with, well, let's keep the term but change the meaning, I'm for that too. But it can't stay the way it is because there's too many black people or people that are labeled as black that they believe it to be negative. They believe their hair is bad because it's black hair. They believe you know they can't get a certain job or go in a certain field because they're black, and they have all these things in their head that a lot of times nothing's really occurring, nothing's really stopping you from doing things, but they believe because they're black they can't do things, or they're going to get hurt, or they're going to get you know stopped by the law enforcement for just doing something simple like going to the store. It's a lot of that is just paranoia and it's talk. So that's like a basic uh, reason why I came to this conclusion as I've grown. But you can go ahead.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying about like there being negative associations with being Black. But the thing is, and I guess this is the same point that I was making last night, and I will open it up for other people to have different points of views to come up. The thing with me is this: our hair won't change no matter what we call ourselves. And the hatred isn't for Black hair, the hatred is for hair that doesn't look like someone else's hair, right? No matter what we call it, we're still going to have Afro textured hair, right? And it's still not going to be what the majority of other people on earth have. And so if we dislike that trait, the dislike of that trait won't change because we remove the label. And the same thing goes with any other aspect of Blackness, right? Because those aspects are not aspects of Blackness, they're aspects of us. We call them aspects of Blackness because we are calling ourselves Black. But the reality is, the removal of the word won't change us. We'll still be who we are. And if there's a hatred for who we are, right, then it doesn't matter what we do or don't call ourselves because the hatred isn't in the name. Whatever name we attach to ourselves, so whatever identifier we use, will still search out that internal hatred. Society might still choose, or I know you wanted to really focus on us and how we view ourselves, we'll still feel those things when we see a person with a particular phenotype. And I don't know that the title in and of itself is going to adjust that. And I guess that's where I really give my pushback is I think the word black, I think people hate the idea of blackness. And they think by removing it, and I've seen this done in many ways, people wanting to be called indigenous, people wanting to be called African, people wanting to be called Moorish, all of these things. Um, People who say I'm a human, right? And you know what's interesting to me is um, even people who are not Black who speak about being human and things like that, that never causes them to want to remove their unique identifier, right? Even if it's just relating to their country of origin or their culture. Um, but with us, I think the hundreds of years of colonialism have made us, it used to be, what is that line in Alex Haley's Queen? You know, when she decided she didn't want to pretend to not be what she was, she started screaming, "I'm negra, I'm negra." And she had not, like with a Southern accent, right? She had not embraced that. She tried to not be a Negro, right? Um, until she finally decided to just own that. And she didn't call herself Black, she called herself a Negro, right? I think whatever we call ourselves won't change internal hate. Internal hate is an inside thing. Whatever we call ourselves won't change our hatred of our hair. Hatred of our hair is an inside thing. Whatever we call ourselves won't stop us from being repulsed from by certain types of people in our community. Or is it a hope that by removing the word, then we can be considered the part of a wider community versus being related to other people who look like us? The thing is, when we see a patch of flowers, right? And all those flowers look similar, we identify whether we know the name of the flower or not that they're all the same flower. Removing titles or having no title doesn't stop us from being identified as a collective because we are all so similar. I don't know if that makes sense, and I'm going to give other people an opportunity to come up who have thoughts on this, either in agreement or in a middle road or with an adverse opinion on this topic, because I'm really interested in what everybody thinks. But what do you think to that? That the mentalities don't change and people can still collectivize us without a title?
Well, people outside of black culture, they're gonna do what they do. I'm not gonna act like I know fully what other cultures do because I wasn't raised in them. I do know that I have done this with other people, mostly black men, and this did not encourage them to, like some people think it encourages swirling or something. No, I just teach them that what they think of themselves is it's just someone else's idea of what it is. And you don't have to live up to that. And the pushback is always the same because this is a lot of people's upbringing. Well, if I do other things that they are actually interested in doing, I'm talking about mundane things. I'm talking about some, still to this day, as big as IT is, and there are a lot of black people going in IT, it is a stigma that a lot of black people believe that's not something black people do. And that's how people are raised. But then there are black men that want to be in IT, and they feel, well, if I do that, I'm losing my blackness. So I have to tell them that, well, first, that's just not really a thing anyway, and it's not about that. It's about being a good person, being a decent person. So you can call yourself that, but just remember that silly thing that you were brought up under, I would leave that behind. And there still is an issue with doing that because some still get shunned by family members. They get ostracized by black society because the average person is going to look at me, they're going to say you're black. and I'm talking about black people. They're going to look at me. They're going to say I'm black. They're going to speak to me, and I'm not going to typically say the general things that black people say or agree to. And now I'm not black. So black people will tell you that you're not black if you don't behave a certain way. And this has just been normal my whole life. So I don't. Again, I'm not going to not be me. So when I see other men or women who are also labeled black and they've been dealing with this their whole life, but they just decide, well, I would rather be black than to be myself, especially if whatever yourself is
But how is
decent.
being black, how does that not make you yourself? Like, even if you don't call yourself black, you're still a part of our collective,
Well,
whatever
I'm
you want to call yourself. And you don't
well,
stop being an individual because you're of the collective of us. Your
well,
individuality isn't stunted.
well. When your individuality is being said, that's not being black. Then yeah, to how most people read that is, well, if I want to continue being myself, I have to accept that black people, some, the majority, I don't know the numbers, but I know it's a common enough problem where people tell me this, they're going to have to be rejected by whoever those black people are that's doing that.
Well, okay, wait. Somebody said people in Africa don't call themselves black. They go by their tribe. No, they're black and they call themselves black,
I don't know what they do.
but they also go by their tribe or they go by their country of origin. I mean, Australians, they'll say they know that they're black, but they'll say they're Aboriginal. That's not them denying their blackness. I can say I'm Gullah Geechee, but it's not that I don't know that I'm black, just as if I say that I'm Gullah. So I think we're convoluting, number one, two things. People don't identify with being Black American, but as far as knowing that they're black, they know that they're black. Just because they call themselves Gullah or Aboriginal or Nigerian or, Eritrean, whatever they call themselves, they do know that they're black, though, right? When we say black, globally, black is also associated with being a black American. So there's two levels of blackness to people who aren't in America. There is blackness of African descent, right? Or blackness of having black skin. In India, the untouchables don't call themselves black, right? Quote unquote, but they know that they're black. They know that they have what they call black skin. They're discriminated and called black in their own country, but they would not call themselves the same type of black as an American black person. But all people with dark skin know that they're black, and we can pick any other word we want, but at the end of the day, nothing is going to change when I walk down the street and you walk down the street, that we're going to be viewed the same. And also the narrow mindedness of this ideation of culture. I think there's a certain sect of Black people who think there's a way to be Black. But I definitely think that as a whole, the majority of Black people understand that there are a variety of personalities in the Black community and a variety of people who listen to a variety of musics, who eat a variety of foods, who have a variety of interests. But yes, as a Black American, there is culture, right, that is associated. And maybe that culture wasn't as pervasive in some of our households, but it's still part of our culture. I think simply because somebody feels like they're an outlier doesn't mean that you have to either, discard anything that connects you to the rest of your people, or you have to conform to be like everybody else, because everybody else isn't like anything. We are all different. And I remember when I first came to YouTube. Um, I had people say, like, well, she doesn't have a Black experience. She's not really Black. And I'm like, well, what's the Black experience? Because there are many Black experiences, right? But I didn't go, well, fine, I'm just not going to be Black then, because I'm not about to, according to them, this is not according to me, live in the ghetto and just, be in love with rap music and, and use Ebonics to be Black, right? Because I don't do all those things, I didn't have a Black experience, or because I didn't do all those things, or because I don't talk a certain way, I'm not Black. I didn't think to myself, okay, well, let me just start speaking Ebonics and go move to the hood so that I can be considered black. I mean, I think only a weak-minded person would ever think something like that. Most of us recognize that it's ignorance and we keep it moving.
Well, it is a form of
Oh,
ignorance.
wait.
Uh,
Go ahead.
it is a form of ignorance, but you just the fact that you even brought that up, we were trying to tell you that last night that you describing your upbringing is I guess you would say an outlier from most Black Americans. Like I said, I'm strictly talking Black American. I really don't know what other people do outside of America when it comes to Black people. But if you experience that, now you decided that you're going to still call yourself Black, and you're just going to have to deal with when you run across those type of people, them saying you're not Black or you didn't have a Black experience. That's just what you're going to have to
Well,
do.
I didn't decide I was going to keep calling myself black because I never considered not being black.
Well, fair
I
enough.
what I considered was that they were ignorant. What I recognized is that I grew up in a very liberal environment, in an upper middle class neighborhood in San Francisco, and somebody from the South has a different world experience than I do. And so because they might go their whole lives and only talk to a white person if they're in a position of authority, or live in a neighborhood for years and never have a white person live near them, that their experience is different. But I never attributed it to being black. I attributed it to people having narrow worldviews because their experience in life is limited, but not, okay, well, is this does this challenge my level of blackness? It wasn't even an occurrence to me, because I don't associate black with personality traits. I associate blackness with my skin color, not personality. I'm
Well, I'm gonna
black
make an
because you
assumption.
look at me and you see that I am black. That is a totally different thing from culture.
I'm gonna make an just an assumption that I believe your upbringing is valid. I mean, because it's your experience, but that's the majority of people don't think that way. And I'm not for conforming to the majority of people. It's just when you're trying to help the majority of people and they're telling you, well, okay, I want to do this, that, and the third. These things aren't negative, they're not criminal, but the majority of my family, my friends who are Black do not agree with these things. And they feel not to do them because they're saying, well, I don't want to not be considered Black and I don't want to be shunned by my family and friends. Well, I'm coming to tell you to do them anyway and deal with whatever comes with it. But they'll say, I'm not Black. Okay, well, then you're not Black then. Does it matter? I don't think it does. It matters at all. I don't think, just like the way you're talking, you don't seem to care that those people said that you aren't Black. You're going to still call yourself Black. They can still
I
call
mean, you
themselves Black.
look at me and clearly I'm black. So it doesn't it's like saying you're not a woman. It's like, look, clearly I'm a woman. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to debate something that's obvious. If I see a flower and you're like, that's not a flower, I'm not going to get into a debate about that. I'm not going to debate about that, because again, we're talking two separate things, which is culture versus when you look at me, what do you see? Right? And I'm saying when somebody looks at me, when they look at you, what they see is not going to change no matter what label we attach to it. I'm curious what you would call yourself, and then after, or what you do call yourself, and then Uncle Locke, what's up? I want you to throw something on this if you'd like.
Well, like I said, for me, it doesn't really matter if you address me as Black. I'll respond as long as you're not using it negatively. I just don't have an attachment to the name. I just people address me by my name. Like that's just how that's how I go about things. But if someone said, I was a Black man and they're not being negative about it, okay. Now if they're being negative about it, I wouldn't appreciate that. But that's the short answer for it.
Hey, Uncle Locke.
Hey, how you doing, Miss Lady?
I'm fine. What are your thoughts on this? And hi, Alicia.
Hi.
Hey, I mean, my thoughts is this. It's like this, right? Anytime you call yourself something or identify as something, it's always best to get to the roots of what it is that you want to claim. So you don't ever get yourself in the grease where, or in the situation where somebody's accusing you of false flagging or misrepresenting whatever you claim it, right? Well, the word black, of course, is a Anglo-Saxon word. It has a meaning that it meant something before America even existed. Um, I mean, it's older than the slave trade. It has its own meaning. Now, from I had to do research on a guy named Martin Delaney. He is the reason why we refer to ourselves as black. And the effort was to avoid being called a Negro. Now, the word black, what it has been taught to us in school, what it means is totally different than what the definition of it actually is. Now, the word having negative connotations is based upon the Moors. The Moors came and did their thing to, Europe, Rome, and whatever. It's not based upon, something that we did. Now, the new negative connotation, and a lot of us have to understand that if you wasn't no upper class, rich type of person, you wouldn't being educated. So a lot of us just assume that just because public education is standard now, that it's always been standard. No. So a lot of people, a lot of the access to knowledge that we have today, the populace didn't have that. The average person or the citizen didn't have that access to knowledge. So the word black, based upon my research in etymology, is synonymous with the word revolution. And when I believe, based upon my research and learning how, in the context of how Martin Delaney used the word black, he used it in a higher esteem. That's why a lot of times, me personally, I say I'm a black man with nigger tendencies. Now, I don't consider being black a race. I consider it being a culture, because black people, we, even though people don't want to accept Ebonics, that's our language. That's our cultural language. We have our own style. We created our own stuff, and we have enough cultural fruit to illustrate and establish ourselves as a culture that is separate from American culture. So what I'm saying when I say I'm black, I don't mean any of the negative connotations that we are taught in school about being black. Because if you read a dictionary from the 1800s versus the 1900s, you'll see that they wasn't even using the word black. They was using the word Schwartz in the 1800s, and then they changed it to black. Now, that's my take on it. I don't mean to be too long winded.
I don't understand the negative connotation argument because, like I said, even if we remove the word, people could still associate people that have dark skin with all those negative traits. So I guess that's my thing is the removal,
See, that's the see,
and also it's important to say that Patchy also really insisted that we not be concerned about what other people think of us because we have no control over that. His argument is really toward how black people view blackness themselves. Is that correct, Patchy? Because I want to make sure that we.
Yes, and the individual, because like I said, someone like you don't have the issues that I'm talking about with the term, I mean the word black and association to a human. But when you're dealing with a bunch of people who do, and they feel, it's just like I have dreadlocks and my hair is no different than a lot of black people's hair. And my whole life they would say I had good hair. Just my hair is just like their hair. Why is my hair good? I don't know. Why is their hair bad? When I talk to them, especially when talking to females, because, well, sadly, somebody been telling them their whole life their hair was some black nappy a hair. Now I wasn't told that. So I don't have this
I
negative
mean,
thought. They do.
it's all about indoctrination and education. I don't mean to cut you off. I apologize. Those people been indoctrinated. They've been miseducated to have some type of self hate monster. Rise up in them. I mean, I've been indoctrinated. They attempted several times to indoctrinate me, but I'm so damn combative that I always resisted it. But that with that on top of that has nothing to do with the word mean. The negative connotations have nothing to do with what the word actually means. That's just how people have. That's other people corrupting other people. It's not based upon the actual word, but it's not even based upon how the word implied. Like I listen to people from different generations or different decades, and the word black has never so far has not I have not seen anybody use it from our culture in a negative context.
I
Only
have.
word that I heard somebody use in negative context is nigga or
I've heard
negro.
people I've heard people use black in a negative context, but I also think that I wonder, and then I want to give Alicia a chance to speak. And I hope I'm not butchering your name. It is Alicia, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to give her a chance to speak. I want to say this. I wonder if it's possible to have a conversation about blackness as a concept that is attached to negativity whilst excluding everybody who's not a part of our community, because we did not decide to contextualize ourselves negatively. That was done for us, and many of us have assimilated outside definitions of our character. So is it even possible to have a conversation about the negative things attached to our persons, right, as a collective, without discussing who created those tropes? And I just don't know that it is. It would be different if this was a self-inflicted um, ideology about our people, but we did not create these ideologies about ourselves. These were impressed upon us, and many of us have simply embraced those things, even back into the times of slavery, right? Characteristics that weren't associated with slaves, right, were then used to create divisions by white owners, or in countries like Australia, divisions were made. You had white people come into Aboriginal villages and pull out the lighter children to breed them out. Right. So these divisions that we see and these negative connotations that we see aren't of our own making. So, can we really speak on them without um can we really speak on them without considering the fact that all of these ideologies are from outside sources, and I think maybe that, rather than casting off a label, recognizing who's the source of these things would help us separate the negativity from it more than anything. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing that out there. Alicia, what's up?
Hey guys. So what I wanted to say on the subject, and to me, like we all are different things. Like for myself, I see myself as Native American because my ancestors were Native American. And I do have some black ancestors, but I don't feel like a strong tie towards those black ancestors. However, like I'm very dark. So yes, I consider myself to be black, right? But also like Native American. And what I think is really interesting, like for example, my brother does not consider himself to be black. He is lighter complexion and he has like really straight hair. But I always look at him and I wonder, I'm like, Jeremiah, if you're not black, then what are you? Because in my book, you're either eumelanated, which is a chemical that makes you black, which is like a molecule, or you're not. So you either have eumelanin or you don't. So if you have eumelanin, you're black because you can get black. Go outside and you'll be black.
So what percentage of native are you?
Um, I have like let me think because like I know for sure that my great grandma is Native, and all of them are Native. A lot of my maternal grandmothers are not Black. So like all my grandfathers are Black, but my maternals are very light skinned, white, and Native American.
So, so this is what I'll say. So I have cousins, many cousins, and an uncle who are Native American. So I have an uncle who is lives on a reservation, right?
Hmm.
And I have cousins who he fathered,
Hmm.
like six of them, who are Black and half Native American and can
Hmm.
go and live on a reservation right now because they have a father that literally is off the reservation.
Hmm.
Um, as a Gullah Geechee person, my ancestors fraternized with Native Americans in the swamps for an extended period of time. I would consider myself Black though. Now, obviously, people will look at me and my hair type and my general phenotype and say, if you shake the tree, something's going to fall out. But maybe at best, I'm 15 to 25% something else.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't necessarily categorize myself as white
Yeah.
because of that 15 to 25%. Not saying, that there's anything wrong with claiming it, but I wouldn't consider myself the way I might look at my children who are mixed, right? Or
Right.
I would look at my cousins who are mixed and could very well decide to swing to the Native American side of the street because they have an entire father that's off a reservation.
Hmm.
And I wonder, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I do see it in the chat, right? So I want to address it. And I think this goes to what Patchy is kind of saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Patchy, that we have such a negative connotation of Blackness. I feel like we're always, you're not saying we're always trying to get away from it. I'm saying we're always trying to get away from it. You're saying we have a negative connotation with it. But then I would say the very evidence of your attachment to your Blackness is evidenced by you being here and being a part of this conversation. So I feel like even on some level, when we say, I don't identify as Black, internally we really do because we
Right.
gravitate to those people. And I think you do make a solid argument about you melanated people or non, right?
Right.
I think that that could be a solid argument. And we could have a whole conversation around that because there's a lot of people who share our melanin characteristics that even some people I would identify as Black don't consider Black, but I would consider them Black because, like I said, to me, Blackness is simply the shade of a person's skin,
Right.
right? I literally attach Blackness to phenotype. And I'm looking at skin only, no other part of the phenotype, not the person's hair, not the person's nose, not the person's lip, just the depth of their skin to me defines Blackness, not culture, not where you were born, n- none of that. Just the color of a
Hmm.
person's skin to me defines Blackness. Um,
Well, I define blackness by culture.
Hold on, wait a
Um,
minute. I think we're getting some feedback. Yeah, I think it's going now.
yeah, I think it's Miss Irene. She might got a couple joints, but
I have a couple of things.
I would define blackness based upon culture, not necessarily phenotype. And because blackness was the like I said, I'm going off of the definition that the individual who coined the term black, which is a black man. I'm not going off of the new definition of black. With the 20th century definition of black. I'm going off of the 19th century definition of black, the 18th century definition of black, all the way to the 13th century definition of black. I'm not going off of the 20th century definition of black, and I'm going off of what did Martin Delaney meant when he meant black. Let's just be honest. Most black people, there's no put like this. There's no land called black nowhere on this earth, so to speak.
There's what?
Black people or black culture was created here in America. Now,
Okay,
based
can
on
you
what I
identify
know
black
is
cult? Can you identify what black culture is? Because I think you're burgeoning on Patchy's argument. What is black culture? Like
black
specifically.
culture, huh?
I was saying
I'm sorry.
specifically. I was saying specifically.
Specifically, black culture is a collective of what I would say three different kinds of cultures. You have I say native pre Americans, and I say the Africans that were brought here, and I say the Europeans. And it was created within the 13 colonies. And we kind of mixed and created amalgamation and like a gumbo. That is black culture. Now,
Run that by me again.
I
I'm sorry.
I mean I have Cherokee. I'm Cherokee on my mother's side, and I'm Geechee on my father's side. I just I
But see,
and
that's
a
the
lot of
thing
black.
is I would consider Gullah. I would consider the Gullah Geechee Nation a culture and black as an identifier of phenotype. When I say somebody's black, the first thing you think in your mind is not culture. The first thing you think in your mind is skin. You're like, oh, okay. You're thinking somebody with brown skin of some kind. That's what you're thinking. Nobody
I
thinks
mean,
culture when they think black. When I say, oh, so and so's black, you're not thinking about hip hop or gumbo. You think you think automatically, okay, I'm painting this person a shade of brown, some shade of brown this person is going to be. And that's why I said, in truth, if we really think about it, black to me. And that's why when I did my video Decolonize, I identified all kinds of melanated people as black, right? That some people would argue about. When I look at the untouchables in India, those are black people to me. When I look at the Fijians, those are black people. When I look at the Australians, those are black people. All of Africa, black people. A lot of indigenous Asian people, black people.
and you know
When I
it's
look at Black
crazy.
Americans, black people, these are all black people to me. If you are of a darker hue, you are black in my eyes, and it's regardless of culture. I don't care if you're tinging finger symbols as an Indian, or wearing a headpiece as an Asian, or a grass skirt. I don't care. It's all black.
I would say this not to get off subject, but the strangest thing about it was the Untouchables. They created the chapter. They had a chapter of the Black Panthers, and so did the Aboriginal had a chapter of Black Panthers in the '70s. But continue.
Yo, can I interject what Irene is saying? I disagree.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Irene, um, Native Americans in America, they had three main different tribes, actually. A lot of Native Americans east of the Mississippi River slept with the slaves. So that's why you might think they're black. They are darker. The ones out west, they did not as much. Actually, Native Americans were slave owners in Oklahoma. And the Native Americans, when they freed the slaves in Oklahoma, they gave them free land. And that's how they was able to have Black Wall Street. The reason why them black people in Tulsa, Oklahoma got so rich is because their slave owners were Native American. And when they freed them, they gave them all the land for free.
Okay, I don't understand what you're disagreeing with.
That the one drop rule, that is racist. And
No, I agree with that. I don't think the one drop rule qualifies. I I never said that.
yeah, but you think everybody's black.
No, I
That's
didn't say
wrong.
everybody's black. I said I believe if you are of a darker hue, if you have dark skin, to me that is the identifier of black. Because if I say that person is black, the first thing you think of is dark skin. So that's what I was saying. I'm not
Can
saying
you give us an
everybody's black.
example?
Everybody's not black.
Can you give us an example? Like, what's the lightest someone is, and then you won't consider them black according to you?
Oh, what is this? Okay. What is the lightest somebody can be and I won't consider them black? I think,
Yeah.
I think this becomes dicey because I think this is more delving into like a race conversation, right? So this is what I'll say because we talked about this yesterday. Humanity is on a spectrum, and I reject the concept of race on the whole, right? I just don't believe in the concept of race. But if we're having a discussion and relevant discussions about the placement of darker skinned human beings on this earth, then I'm going to not have to put a skin color on that. If I say this person is black, you picture in your mind all those shades. I don't have to identify that. I don't have to say up into the point of like, this person, you're black. I that's not something that I have to do. I don't have to say, or unless you're an albino. I don't have to do that because I think when people ask, well, how do you define it? How do you define this blackness? I think when people do that, it's very disingenuous because nobody questions what comes in their mind when they think a black person. And even when I have a sister, one of my siblings is not our color. She's lighter than we are, right? And she is ambiguous. And that's where that term comes from, ambiguous. Now, as a black person, I see her and I'm like, okay, this is probably a light skinned black girl, right? As a black person, I know that. But in reality, she's ambiguous looking. And that's why we have that term ambiguous. Ambiguous means that you are in, because humanity is on a spectrum, you're in that middle ground, right? You're not automatically what comes to mind when we think black. You're not automatically what comes to mind when we think white. You're in the middle and you're an emulsion. You are the thing that makes the circle, right? You are the thing that creates the spectrum ultimately. And so I think, there's no need for me to identify it past that because we know what black looks like. And I'm not talking about phenotype. We know what black skin looks like. We know what ambiguous looks like. And we know what white looks like. Ambiguous can also be considered what mixed looks like. People whose phenotype is an emulsion of the two extremes being white and black, because humanity is on a spectrum. When we have these conversations, to me, it's important to identify blackness because and even whiteness, right? The ambiguous people, they're in the middle. But it's important to identify those two things for the sake of conversation in this modern era, even though I don't subscribe to them being valid, because those people who are black, those people whose skin color comes to your mind when you say that's a black man or that's a black woman, that dark hue, those people are being oppressed globally, severely. And so I think at that point we know what we're talking about. And I think that is I think any games that we play outside of that is like, how light is it, how light do you get before you're not considered black. I think that that's just at that point playing games, because we know what a black person is, we know what an ambiguous person is, we know what a white person is. Nobody has to identify that for us. Nobody has to say, I understand when you get close to the borderline, there's if we want to be, petty about it, when there's some borderline between super dark and like brown dark, there's some borderline between being black and then moving on into a more ambiguous sphere. Yes, we know that there are these borderlines because humanity is on a spectrum, but those borderlines don't prevent us from understanding what is unambiguous, right? What is unambiguously black, what is unambiguously white. We do know what those people look like. And so it's kind of like the abortion argument. What about the women who got raped? You know what I mean? What about the incest victim? It's like that's not who's making up most of the abortions. Why does that become the topic of conversation? And I feel the
Well, I'm
same
gonna
way
tell
with
you
skin
why.
color.
I think it's because white people, they did a lot of damage to the Native Indians and the slaves. I mean, they not only did they kill them, they raped them. They did them so dirty. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people are mixed. They feel sorry for the Native Americans. They really did kill a lot of Native Americans on the east, like east of the Mississippi River. You're not gonna find them like that unless you really go out west. They really did a number. The Seminole Indians slept with the slaves. So yeah, a lot of people like Kwame Brown and all that. You could tell he's mixed with like African and Indian. You know what I'm saying? They did a number, but um, no, I just think that we shouldn't be so, hold that white and black shit. That's the white people you created. Personally, I'm white, but I don't like white people. You know what I'm saying? I don't like white people at all, actually. Just because I know the history, you know. But
I
and that's
mean,
what they
I
taught you,
believe
though.
we have to really sit down and collectivize and to really so we can be able to communicate. Our biggest issue is communication. I understand where Miss Irene is coming from in reference to phenotype, but I identify blackness as a culture because, like what you were saying about the whole color argument. I mean, you can be blue, black, purple to light, bright, passive, or white and still be black. So I
No,
don't
you can't
think
pass
that
for white and still be black. I don't believe that.
What
I said
about
and that's what I'm saying. It's not no
Yeah, I
skin
could.
color.
But I
Blackness is
think
not.
so. I
If
think,
we,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say this is why I say that because maybe the purpose of identifying what blackness is different for us. My purpose in identifying what blackness is because if you are going to be oppressed based on your physical appearance, that is my purpose in identifying what blackness is. When I go to India and there's a safari of black people who are being oppressed because of their dark skin, I feel the need to be able to identify that. When I go to mainland India and I see people having their arms and legs cut off and working in sewers and considered to be untouchable because of their dark skin, I feel the need to identify what blackness is to protect those people. When I go to Fiji and I watch the native people in Fiji being held at the bottom of society by their oppressors, I want to be able to identify that is happening because of their skin. When I go to Australia and there's a nigger head rock and they've been bred out to the tune of only 30,000 left, I want to be able to identify the black people that when they walk in the room, their skin is so dark that they are being discriminated against and they are being abused. So my purpose in identifying blackness is not to create racial hierarchy or mince words about if somebody's light or dark or looks mixed or not. I don't care about that. What I care about is when you walk into a room, when you walk into an establishment, when you go into a particular country, does your unambiguous look of blackness place you in a position of danger? If so, you are black. It's just that simple. I have no other dogs in this race other than the protection of people who are discriminated against because they are unambiguously black. Other than that, I don't care about the term. It's irrelevant to me. There is no such thing as race. It's all BS. But unfortunately, that BS causes people of a darker hue to be harmed globally. And so we need to give them a name so that we can say there is consistency throughout the world where people who look like this are being hurt and abused. And that needs to be addressed. That is
I
the only reason it matters to me that we identify blackness. Otherwise, I wouldn't care.
I
I just want to say that I feel like we could substitute blackness with being melanated. For me, that's the way like I always think about it. Like I always place it like like in the placeholder of being black. So instead of saying, "Oh, all these people are black," I always say, "These people are melanated," because black I feel like has such an energy around it where so many people want to reject it. Like, no, 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 this isn't black. Oh no, I'm not black. Well, if you put melanated there, which is basically the same thing because it's describing the color of your skin, it's
you
like
want
much
to
easier to like
replace
go
a
over.
Anglo, you want to replace a Latin word with an Anglo-Saxon word. That's all you want to do. Just the same way with Moors, it means black too. Kemet means black too. Indica means black too. Like
Um, this is a scientific term. Like this like term is used in like all the research papers that I've been reading. This like this term is technical. So if I say you melanated, I'm not like saying it because oh it's a Anglo-Saxon word or
it's a
wherever
Latin
it's
word.
derived from. Yeah, yeah,
It's a
that
Latin
has
word.
like I feel like that's not really like important.
Okay, my
I
question
mean,
is if
it means the same thing, just in a different language.
I could
It's the same word, different language.
I could go with you melanated. If I go, wait. Alicia, there you go. Thank you, dear. If I go with you melanated, which I have no problem with that, I guess here's the thing that I think is really important we understand. If we go with you melanated, it's going to turn into the negative aspects that come with dark skin aren't going anywhere. You might like the word better because, some of us hate the term black. So you might like the word you melanated better, right? But all of the negative connotations that come with that melanin are coming with you, no matter what you call yourself. And I think this idea that we can separate from the negativity by simply changing what we call ourselves is very problematic. It's going to give us that reality check. And maybe that's what it's going to take. Maybe it's going to take us all just calling ourselves something different and then finding out, oh yeah, look, nothing's changed because it's not the word, it's the mindset of the people that's the problem. And we think by disassociating with a word, it somehow makes us better. It somehow is going to make things better. It's somehow going to make us feel better about ourselves because superficially, maybe it does feel better, right? To say, "Oh, I'm mixed," or to say, "Oh, I'm Aboriginal," or to say, "Oh, I'm Native." Maybe that does make you feel better. But I'm going to tell you something. Your state in the world doesn't change because you change the title, because the title is not the problem. And we need to face the problem head on, which is the mentality of people and discrimination based on phenotype. And whatever we call ourselves, that is going to carry onward. That is going to keep happening. In India, they're called the untouchables, right? In Australia, they're called Aboriginal, right? They're called different things throughout the planet. They are called different things throughout the planet. But the mindset that is attached with Blackness that degrades them never changes. And so the very fact that Black people do exist on every continent, native to those places, and are equally discriminated against, and all are called by different names, ought to let you know that the name is not the problem. It's the mindset of people that are the problem. And even that self hatred, because that's what it is. Our self hatred at the idea of Blackness is a mindset. The Aboriginal self hatred at the idea of being an Aboriginal, right? They had to come to a place where they identified with Blackness because they finally recognized it was their Blackness that was causing their discrimination. And I think instead of running from this, we need to, because we think we're running from a word, but we're running from being categorized with a group of people who we view as the most hated, the most disliked, the least of. We're not running from the word. We're running from being associated with what we believe to be the worst of the worst. That's what we're running from.
Hey, Irene.
Yeah.
So the way that I use eumelanated, I think eumelanin is a beautiful, wonderful molecule. Like I love learning new things about it. It's the bedrock of biotechnology. So when I'm using the word of eumelanated, I'm really speaking about its capabilities. And me saying I'm a eumelanated person isn't really running away from my Blackness, is running towards it.
I definitely, like I said, I would roll with you melanated over anything as long as we rolled with it with the understanding that all of the tropes are coming with us no matter what.
Well, I wanted to say this.
Thoughtful Knight said something that goes back to what Pachi was saying, which is they're not black because they're not it's not because they're black, it's because they're not white. Australian Aboriginals are clearly different than Black Americans. How?
Well, he
'Cause-
said Africans, but like I said, I'm not speaking outside.
Then Black Africans. How?
I'm not speaking outside the country because unless I do enough research and communicate with the people outside of the country, I don't feel comfortable. I don't know what happens in Australia, but I will say this: something Irene said is something I've been hearing my whole life, and this is another issue that I've seen in American Black culture. Irene basically said, if I misunderstood, she can correct me, that she associates Blackness with other people from other places due to the what was the word she used?
Skin color.
No, 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 no. When you were talking about you stand by the Aborigines and who else did you say, the Untouchables, because of the discrimination, right?
No, their skin color. It's not because of the discrimination, because lots of people are discriminated against.
Well, you
It's
mentioned something
because
though
they are
that
being
along that
abused.
lines.
No, I specifically because they're being abused based on their skin color. That's the basis of their abuse. In
Okay.
India, the untouchables are being abused because their dark skin is considered by their religion over there to be a curse. That they were given dark skin as a curse. And so because of that, they're treated badly. It's literally because of their skin. And so,
Well,
yeah, it's not the discrimination. It's because the discrimination is based on skin color.
well, this is what I'm getting at is that I believe people use the word oppression, and there is a bonding with oppression when someone is no longer oppressed or does not feel oppressed or is willing to fight oppression. Those who just linger in oppression don't get along with someone that's saying, I don't want to be oppressed no more. Even if I am, I'm going to fight it. In Black American culture, there's a lot of Black people that feel they're oppressed. And if you say, I'm not oppressed, or if I am, I'm going to fight it, a lot don't like that because the bond seems to be the oppression, which goes back to negativity. I mean, yeah, of course there could be a bond with being oppressed, but when that is the only bond and people who want to have attachments to you don't want to let that go because, well, then we won't have a connection, then that's an issue
Do you think it's the only bond though? It's like we would
for
not
a
say
lot of
this,
people. Yeah,
but
that's
here's
how
the
they view
thing.
it.
We would never say this for anything else. Well, I want to get to that, but um Knopf's, is it Knopf's? Givens said, I'm black, but I'm a quarter white. I look black, therefore I am mixed race, but I am black because of my phenotype. My phenotype is black. Well, honey, if you're mixed, I'm mixed. I don't think, I think we use mixed very loosely. Um, Humanity's on a spectrum anyway, so that's like a whole conversation. But I don't know if we're talking about mixed race in the traditional sense. I don't know that a quarter of something, most Black people are 15 to 25% white. That's most Black American people. That's almost all of us in Black America. We're almost all 15 to 25% white. So I think I just want to throw that out there. I don't know. It's up for debate. Who thinks if you're 25% something else that you're mixed race? I personally don't, because most of us, in that case, we're all mixed. And I
I would
think a
say on
lot
a
of
lot of
people
people's.
make that argument because this is another attempt to get away from Blackness. Like we'll make any attempt to get away from Blackness. It's insane to me. I'm not saying you're doing that, Naf. I was saying, like in general, I've heard people just claim mixed race or say everybody is mixed to get away from Blackness because it's always Black people doing it. And I want to speak to what you said about oppression being the common thread. We wouldn't do this with anything else. We would not do this with anything else. We absolutely would never do this with anything else. The reality is, oppression is not our common thread because that's our choice. And this is where we start to put the onus of the problem on the people who are in the state of being on the receiving end of that issue. Oppression is not a link that Black people are grabbing onto because they don't have anything else. Oppression is not a decision that we've made for ourselves. I have many other things in common with other Black people. But the most pressing issue I have is the human safari in the Andaman Islands. The most pressing issue I have are the arms and legs being chopped off of Black people in India. The most pressing issue I have are those slums in Brazil. Now, that is not my choice, and that's not the way that I want to bond. But I do recognize that if people are being discriminated against to that degree, simply because of their skin color, then I cannot think that in a world where you can fly to one country and buy and sell Black people like cattle or view them like they're on a human safari or have them scrub your toilets and sit in the back of the class, that when you get back to America, your perception of people who I look like won't transfer to your treatment of me. So I don't want to bond over oppression. I don't think any of us do. But I think that if a group of people is choosing to globally engage in violence against people based on their skin color, how are we not going to discuss that? Like, it's not even a desire at that point. It's not even the only thing that bonds us at some point. But it ends up being a very serious thing that has to be addressed. And I don't think that like, the shame of that is not our shame to carry. The shame of that is the shame of the people that are engaging in those barbaric behaviors. It's not the shame of those of us who say, look, we really need to stop the global culture of attacking people because their skin is dark. The shame is not on us. I can't help. And honestly, it should be not just what bonds those of us of a darker hue together. Anybody worth their salt who isn't Black should be joined with us in the cause of stopping discrimination against people based on the depth of their skin color. That's not just a thing that should bond us. It automatically bonds us because it directly affects us because we're of that group. But that should be something that bonds all of humanity. The fact that you recognize it's only bonding Black people only speaks to the problem.
Well, I didn't say that it's only bonding Black people. I was saying that that is something that Black people use as a bond, is the oppression. And, we can even go back to, at least when I learned in history, is that, I don't know what happened to Irene. What I learned in history was, Harriet Tubman helped free the slaves, and there was an issue with her trying to convince slaves that they were slaves. And they didn't, obviously because of the brainwashing, she couldn't convince a lot of them. And some of them even tried to aid in getting her and the runaway slaves to get captured because, well, that's how they were being brainwashed. My point of bringing that up is that today in Black America, there are a lot of people that the oppression is a major bond. And if you happen to be identified as Black by Black people and you are not seemingly to be oppressed or you are fighting oppression, they will try to bring you back to the oppression because that is comfortable for oppressed people. Sometimes they've been oppressed for so long, or sometimes they could literally not be oppressed in a physical form, but mentally they've been oppressed because of indoctrination. So they're going to bring you back because, well, misery loves company. So I was bringing that up to say that I believe that is an issue for anyone to do it. Now, you were saying like, if we wouldn't do this to anybody else. Again, there's another issue. I mean, I'm me. I will say that to anybody. If you bond with people just because, let's say you end up in prison for something you did, and you did it, and you've had bonds with your prison mates, cool. But if your bond is just prison, and there are
Okay, but
people that's
let's
like
not
this, they want
compare
to go back.
Blackness to prison. Come
No, I'm
on
not
now.
comparing Blackness to prison.
Yeah,
I'm
you
just talking
literally
about.
are. But
No,
let me
Irene,
ask
I'm
you
I'm
this
not doing I'm
question.
not doing that. I'm just
You
talking
you
about
literally
oppressed
just did
people.
though. You just
No, I'm
compared the
talking
bond of
about.
Black people to if you go to prison and you bond over all being in prison or all having committed the same crime. There's no crime here, and I think sometimes our heart speaks whether we are cognizant of it or not. But I'm going to ask you this: you're a man, right? You're a
Yes.
man. Okay, there are issues that face men, right? We know that women hit more often than men, for example. We know that men can be raped, but that the rape against men is not always recognized. We know that men can get a bad rap when it comes into going into family court systems and things like that. We know that men are arrested more, right? Do
Hmm.
you feel that any of those issues that affect men are things that you care about? Or
Yeah,
do
I
you
care.
not
I
care about
care.
them at all?
I care about
Because,
some of those, some things that men complain about, not all.
okay, now that would be like me saying that um, your concern for that doesn't make sense because you're not a man, you're Pachi. You're not a man, you're Pachi. That's like you saying, I don't want to be called a man anymore. I don't want to
No,
be
that's
associated
not
with
the
those
same.
things. I don't want to have conversations about those things. I don't want to make those things that affect men my concern because I'm not a man. I am Pachi. I'm not a man, I'm Pachi. Right? Like you're saying, I'm not Black, I'm Pachi. Now, here's my thing. My thing is I agree with you that some people hate being Black so much that their desire to get you to identify as Black is because you're not better than me. You're Black too. That's their vibe. I know what you're talking about. I've seen it all the time. You're just a nigga too. Like we know that energy comes, but that's a self-hating energy. I mean, self-hate manifests itself in many ways. That self-hate manifests itself from a desire for separation, a desire to bring people back in because you honestly think the capability of separating is better. This is how mixed people are ostracized too. This is why so many Black people have held on to the one drop rule as well, right? Because you can't be better than me. You're just like me. You're no better than me. And so many Black people I hear, even in the modern day, say that you're no better than me. What they mean is you're still Black too. You're still down here with me. And strangely, it's that idea of being downtrodden that is the very thing that you're trying to get away from. Am I correct?
I'm trying to get people away from that mindset, and
Right.
if you are not affected by that and still identify as Black, that's perfectly fine. As long as you identify as Black does not hold you back in life, and you don't let other people who call Black hold you back or guilt you to hold you back. I don't care what you call yourself, but if that is a main factor, like I said, I've done this with people. I just said, tell them, well, hey, you're not Black. I run down the full history of race and America and how the term even got upon your ancestors and you. And when they learn all this stuff, they say, oh, this was made up anyway. So it doesn't really matter. And it really doesn't. So then they move differently. Now, I've actually never, anyone I've helped, they still call themselves Black.
Wait, so are you saying that once they've simply removed the label of Blackness, that they move with purpose through life?
No, they don't even remove, they call themselves Black. They just understand that all the things, whether it be negative or positive, these are just made up things that people generations ago put on this term and applied it to you. And you don't have to live up to the negative or the positive. Be your own self. That's what I'm telling them.
But
Go ahead.
Okay, but what does that have to do with what you call yourself? Can't you do that anyway?
No, because a lot of people in the Black community believe that they've been called Black, and Black has a meaning, and the meaning is
what is the meaning? Tell me what is the meaning?
I'll give you some general things. If you're Black, it's a bunch of stuff I deem stupid. If you're Black, you have rhythm. No, that's just some people say. If you're Black, you're good in bed. You know what I'm getting at here.
Well, let me say this. But do Black people overwhelmingly have more rhythm than other groups of people?
I wouldn't
on
know.
average.
I honestly wouldn't know. I don't study.
I mean, we've seen enough. You've lived life. We've seen enough people moving around.
Well, see, rhythm is dependent upon the beat.
Well, is it really? Because even when we see white people who have learned how to be more rhythmic or have more rhythm than the average white person, right? There is something different about their movements.
Sure, everyone, different cultures. I just put it to you this way. I've only, my whole life, I've seen American Black people dance to beats and sounds that are associated with American Black people. I haven't seen American Black people dance to.
You've never seen an American Black person line dance?
No, I actually haven't.
Really?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not that I don't go out and see a bunch of Black people line dancing.
I've seen it, and it's something to see. I mean, the electric slide is a Black take on a line dance. But I've actually seen Black people. In fact, there's a couple here on YouTube. Does anybody know their name? It's a big tall man and his little tiny woman, and they do a lot of line dancing. But okay, all right. So you're
the
not
point is,
sure if Black people in general have more rhythm. I'll say literally, Black people on every continent I find really have. Now, I'm not saying all Black people have rhythm. I'm saying, but there's a reason. There's truth to the argument. And there's truth to some of these negative tropes too. That's why I really want to go here. I'm just saying not all Black people might be like that, but there's truth to the argument that Black people have rhythm. People are saying that because overwhelmingly when they encounter Black people, they have more rhythm.
Well, let's get to a negative one.
Pulling that out of the air, out of nowhere. But give me another example.
I'll give you a negative one. Black people cannot read well or at all sometimes.
Okay, but how is that not true?
Because anyone can learn to read as long as you have a reading disability. You can learn to read just like you can learn how to get rhythm. That's why it's silly. You can learn.
Oh,
I believe people
nobody.
can
You didn't
learn.
say that the trope was black people cannot learn to read. You said the trope is black people
No, when a
often don't
black
read well.
child is taught so they can't read, and this is all they hear, they a lot of times don't even attempt to read. See,
Okay,
I'm
I'm not
starting at the
saying that
base.
saying it to children isn't wrong. I'm saying it that the reality is many of our people live in underprivileged environments where their parents are not taught to give them access to literature. A lot of times the teachers will pass our children on even when they don't have the educational acumen to move on to the next level. And so we do end up with a society, and this happens globally, and this speaks about the state of Black people where a lot of Black people are, in essence, illiterate and functioning in illiteracy. That is factual. Does that
Let
mean
me
that
cut in after you, ma'am. I'm
I'm sorry?
sorry, cut you off. I just asked, can I cut in after you?
Yeah, there's truth to that argument. Now, I agree that you shouldn't tell a Black child that they can't read, or I mean, obviously, we're not going to be negative toward people, but to identify that that's a problem, that doesn't have to be taken as a negative as much as something that we need to address, right? We need to promote literacy in the Black community. That is true.
Um, a lot of the negative things that I'm hearing that he's saying that is associated with the word black is not based upon actual black people. These are based upon entrapment type of situations where they fire all the black teachers, and then the white teachers don't properly educate our children the way the black teacher did, and now they saying that black people don't know or don't want to read.
Well, let's be
Me,
fair. Very
myself, and
few Black people attempt to become teachers. I mean, in fairness.
I mean that
And the
that
first teacher
I
is the
understand
parent.
what you're saying, but that hasn't always been the case.
Well, I'm saying
Historic.
obviously, because of segregation, we have far fewer Black teachers, and I think segregation in America played a part in that.
I get what you're saying. My point is this: like me, prime example, right? I was a person, special education where I wasn't taught how to read. Now, I had to teach myself how to read at 13. That's why I am so scientific when it comes to words, because I get to the intimate, the Latin, I get to the root of words, and I break down each syllable and each prefix or suffix. That's why I'm so intimate with words, because I was classified as illiterate. That's why when I'm like a word nerd. You say a word, you got to stand on that word, because I was diagnosed with, and I was in special education in the school to prison pipeline. I experienced that. You understand what I'm saying? So in that situation, it was based upon um the teacher wanted me to act like a girl. I didn't want to act like no girl. I asked questions. You know what I mean? She get disrespectful, and I retaliate, and then it was just a combative school experience. So that ain't just because, and that's basically it. A lot of the issues that he's having is not based upon stuff that black people actually birthed. These based upon stereotypical things that people put upon us. I'm
Well,
not done, but I'm.
this is
No,
what
I
I'm
asked
saying.
him to define it, and you've given two things.
Well,
Can
I
you
can
give
get
some
more.
other? Because I really want to get an understanding of what you identify as being associated with blackness, because right now I think like these are valid, right? I think there is a high illiteracy rate in the Black community globally, not because we're stupid. I think because we're undereducated. um I think it is common, and I'm glad the sister brought that up about beat, because I do find that white people tend to gravitate to more melodic tunes, snakish tunes, like where you can curve your body, whereas Black people, and our culture globally, right? We find this in every continent where Black people are located, tend to go with with drum beats or percussion. So I think that's valid. I think that that's a valid stereotype too. What are some others? Because I think the stereotypes are not maybe not the problem as much as how you choose to view them. I mean, I know I'm my husband works with children. And reading is a challenge that we find a lot within the Black community. I teach Black children, and bringing them up to par. I have some teenage Black children who my daughter, for example, reads at a college level. But I know that my textbooks that I put out for the kids are above their reading level. A lot of the words they don't understand. A lot of words that I grew up using, they don't use. And that's not because they're not intelligent, it's because they haven't been exposed to them. So I think it's valid to say that that there is a level of illiteracy and also a level of not understanding their native language. By native, I mean native to the place they were born. Language in the Black community, and I think that's just because they're undereducated. So I haven't detected any lies so far. What's another example of Blackness, Black culture or association with Blackness
Well,
that you've noticed?
I'll name another, but this is an important part of it. You know, a lot of this stems from childhood, and this is why I'm saying the the how would I put it? Someone attaching themselves to this term black is important, and it could be any term. This could be white. It doesn't matter what the term is. When a child is, you know, born into the world, they're just a child, male, female, and they grow up. And if their parent says, well, you're black, but everything they know to be black is positive, that child is going to be just fine. Generally in America, that's not what they're going to pick up on, and they're not going to be directly told that. So when you have children, like, you know, I said reading, math is also another one. I love math personally, but growing up, me loving math and liking math and being good at math was viewed as a white thing. That's not, it doesn't make any sense to me because they're just numbers, but that's what that's what people believe. And when a child believes, well, my whole life I was told, not me, I'm saying a child is thinking, my whole life I was told I'm black, and black people don't read well, I can't read well, and when I try to read well, I'm labeled something negative by my peers. I don't want to be labeled negative by my peers. Matter of fact, I'm praised by my peers for not being able to read and acting out. I would rather do that because I'm in society and I'm accepted. This is a major problem that, yes, the changing the, you know, putting positivity behind the word could fix. Getting rid of the word and not associating someone with it could also work. Either one, as long as it gets fixed, that's my whole goal, is
I
to
mean,
make
I
sure.
think devaluing education is common among, and I'm just going to keep it real, y'all. It's common among, and that's why I said I think part of this is class as well. I think it's common among uneducated, poor Black people. And I think it's an anomaly in those environments for Black people to value education. And yes, you normally hear of children that grew up in these impoverished, undereducated areas who will talk about being told that they are talking white, that something like having an acumen for mathematics is, or being a nerd, those things are not. A lot of times when I hear people talk about these, they've grown up, and I don't know if this is your case, in impoverished environments where the majority of the population was undereducated. And so in those environments, there are tropes tied to these things. Whereas where I grew up, I literally was forced, if I got a spelling word wrong, to stay up and write the word 100 times after dinner. And sometimes I would be writing many words 100 times each. And there was the expectation of academic excellence, right? So I think that is less a Black thing and more a socioeconomic and educational thing. If you have a parent that is uneducated and poor, and you grow up in an environment of people who are uneducated and poor, then it might be more rare to find people who value education and value individuals who have an acumen toward mathematics, or any of the STEM um, fields, or anything like that. Typically, athletics and art are what are promoted in those environments. And there's nothing wrong with athletics and art, but I think I think that is more, like I said, not because of their blackness, though. I don't think the blackness is what's causing that. I think the environment is what's causing that. And I think that's why it's really important that instead of having these divides between the classes and the educational brackets of Black people, that we start to engage each other more so that we can pull from a lot of what each class has to offer. I mean, each group of people has something valuable to offer. And we need to do some we need to do some more intermingling between the varieties of Black people that exist. I think what I find in the Black community is people who have grown up in a particular environment of Black people, they define Blackness by their environment because they don't get exposure to different types of Black people. And so they either want to associate or disassociate from Blackness based on their world experience. Whereas if children were exposed to a variety of types of Black people from their youth up, maybe we could not homogenize what Blackness is. And maybe when a child has an acumen for sports or art, they would be exposed to Black. Because if you pull out the sports or art card, in my family, that's not something anybody's trying to hear. They're not trying to hear you're trying to be in sports or do anything artistic, right? You better want to be a lawyer, a doctor, own a business. You better be a homemaker with a business. Like, you better do something. But sports and art is what we're not doing, right? But so a child that grows up in an environment like mine would benefit from being around Black people where sports and art are promoted and appreciated and nourished. And a child that grows up in an environment where education is not valued, or mathematics is not valued, or engineering is not valued, would benefit from engagement with Black people where they're going to be all about that. And I don't think it's Blackness that's the problem. I think it's being isolated in one type of Blackness that makes a lot of Black people feel alienated and as if they want to detach from what their world experience has been. But I really want to stress that Black culture and Blackness looks many ways. And I don't mean phenotypically, even though that's true too. I mean in execution, right? And so, I mean, do you think that's a fair statement, Pachi?
I think it's absolutely fair to say that there's different types of cultures. The issue is, again, you might disagree, is the labeling. Is it wouldn't make sense to call ketchup ketchup and mustard ketchup, because then it gets confusing. So when all right, so when you brought up, it's not Blackness, I would, I say it's the culture. It's a cultural thing. Like when you said in your household they wouldn't put arts in sports. That is, again, just my perspective. That's abnormal for Black culture, because they would push arts and sports before they push anything else. And a lot of times it's not for a positive reason. It's a lot of times because they feel you, especially if you're a male, you can't. What else you gonna do? That's what you're known to do. Black people play sports, so go play a sport. Go rap. Go sing a song. That's really what it boils down to. You try to do something academic, they might encourage it, but it's not the same as the sports. It's not so the cultures are the culture definitely matters. To I do agree that people need to see other types of cultures. That will help people. Like, if you go to college, not necessarily community college, because then you probably just be in the same old spot you in. But if you go to a normal college, you will meet people from other cultures, hopefully, and you'll get to learn about how other people think and move, and maybe it will give you new ideas and stuff like that. Or just go out and mingle with people, travel. So I do think that's important to do, for anyone to do. But again, what I know of Black culture, a lot of people are raised to not like pretty much anyone that's Black. I mean, if you're Black, that's fine, but anyone outside of Black, especially if you're white or whatever they identify as white, they would suggest you don't even mingle with them. So then you're in a box, like you said. You're in a box thinking one way.
Let me say this. I don't. This is strange, and it's the reason why it's so alarming to me is because it's just like the whole concept. Everything that we call ourselves is a label. A man is a label. A woman is a label. I mean, every culture that exists in the world is a label. And each label have a definition that you have to either, if you choose to uphold by it, then that's what you is. If you don't choose to uphold it, then that's what you ain't. I don't consider, just like the way certain people usually loosely use the word man. If you ain't respond, if you don't fulfill the requirements of being a man, then you not no man. So it's just like with blackness is there is a criteria that we all do subconsciously in order to sustain that or fulfill that requirement. And I understand what Miss Irene was talking about in reference to how she mean, which is true. And for the past couple years, black has a broader reach to go with to go along or to go along with other people who are globally oppressed just as we are. But at the same time, and that's due to black people in America reaching out to other people around the world and them identifying with our struggle and with the intention for us to be collective and productive together in order to get this monkey off our back. I understand with that aspect, but I mean, when I think of blackness, I think about being innovative. Like, and even to go on what she said, I don't think that our phenotype is why we are being oppressed. I think that it's our capabilities and abilities and skills is why they mess with us, because we are ATM machines. They know that we are so innovative and creative that we're going to come up with something and create something that they can profit off of. So I don't think it's just simply our skin, our pigmentation that makes us black. I think it's that our God-given natural capabilities that makes us black. And again, like I say, black is synonymous with the word revolution. You know what I'm saying? And I say that to mean that it's about coming out of darkness, going into light, and back to darkness, and being repetitive with it. The reason why the educational system miseducated us to believe that black has negative connotations because they don't want us to fulfill the actual definition of the word black so we can get this monkey off our back. That's the difference between being black. I make a distinction between being black and being a Negro. The Negro is the one that complied and gatekeep and hold us back. The black is the one that always keep on fighting so we can be liberated and have the pure sense of freedom while we here. Those people who fought for our constitutional protection, they were black. The motherfuckers on the individual on the Confederate side who was black, who fought against, so we can't get no fought against us getting our constitutional protection. They are Negroes. So
Well, can I throw this in
I
just
mean,
real fast?
and you can say Negro means black all you want, but it really means that did not grow. It's a
Well,
colonial word.
let me
The
throw this in
prefix
real quick.
ne means not that. Grow is a German word. The ne is a Latin word. They put those two compound words together, and it means that did not grow. And it originally a colonial term. It was meant for the Irish that England brought here, but the Irish didn't have the agricultural, the blacksmith, and the skills that black people had. They were not here because we're just black and we can do the work. We're here because they know that we build civilizations. We are civilized. And that's the biggest problem. We are too humane. That is why we are at the bottom. Because we are too humane that we can't get into our ice complex and be like them and get them off our back. I'm done
Well, I'll
for the
throw this
moment.
in real fast to what you just said. That goes to what I've been saying though. If you have, just to keep it simple, if you have a group of black people trying to change the lives of black people for the better, but then as you said, you have a group of people that you label the Negroes that aren't trying to do that and they're trying to stop them, then saying everyone who's black is not going to help. It confuses even people that are trying to find, well, where are these black people that's trying to change? Because they might be bumping into a Negro that's calling themselves black. So that's why I'm saying you're right. Labels are just labels, but the label has a meaning. The meaning behind the label is what matters. But if two things got the same label but different meanings, that can be confusing to the average person. So that is one of my points to why changing or disassociating may be helpful for change. But go on.
I would like to ask a question of um
Hi, Corey.
is black and that hey, how you doing, Irene? My fault. I should have spoke
Fine,
when
thank
I
you.
should have spoke when I came through. Um is black a nationality or is it a race of people? Because I don't think it is. It's a
I
status.
don't think it's either.
It's a dead status that was given to us by white people, or what we call white people, because white again is a status also. It's also a status. It
Historically,
was
this would
given
be
to
accurate.
it was given to us as you know, we were the original people of America before they even came here. But it was given to us as a, something like if you go to court and you claim yourself as being black or African American, you'll never win in the courtroom with that because it's not a nationality. Your nationality is everything when you go to court, and that's the truth. That's why they get away with murdering us, because in law, black means that you're dead. If you're already dead, then they all they do is use what is it, double jeopardy to get off.
So
That's
you're
how they
saying you
get
should
off.
say you're American when you go to court?
Of course I do, because that's who I am.
But yeah, but do
But
we
the
even give
but the
race when we go to court though?
but
Excuse
but
me.
that word is not black in the color of law. That word is morgue. More. It's MOR. It's not black. That's a different two different words. And I'm black. I went to court. I faced trial, face a life trial, about to go to life, get life. And I won because the law, because they didn't follow the law when they tried to do their thing to me. So I don't know about all that. I beat my case. I was
Eh,
facing life, 40 years minimum, and beat it, all while saying I'm black.
I'll
On the
I'll
job application or whatever, I cross out African American and I put black there. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll say this. I don't think it really matters one way or the other because this is why when we get into like these types of conversations about how valid identifiers are to operating in society, this is where I check out because I'm like, what would solve all these? It wouldn't matter what we called ourselves if we had a revolution and then the system was just a totally different system. Then we wouldn't have to debate over nationality, et cetera, because the problem is anything that we believe is only as valuable as our ability to enforce it. And so until there's violence and blood behind any ideation people have, there's no enforcing it. And so even conversations about how we navigate the legal systems in my eyes are moot because the legal system is capable of violating itself. right? The system is designed so that they can violate their own rules and regulations, no matter what our understanding or the depth of understanding we have of them are. So then the only real solution to any level of injustice or inability to have upward mobility as a collective in society really does come down to violent socio-political revolution. So I rarely travel down the paths of identifiers as a way to navigate in this society better and claim rights, because to me, the only rights you have are the rights that you can defend, and defense requires violence and bloodshed. I just want to throw that out there.
Well, I don't think it's going to be violence and bloodshed this time. It's more spirit. It's more on the spiritual level now
Wait, whoa, whoa. Javier, which one's
than
the
it's
real
ever
you?
been.
I'm so sorry, Corey. Javier, which
Oh,
one's the
you
real
good?
you? Javier, there are
Hey,
two.
you
Oh,
hear
that's
me?
the real you. Okay, go
Nah,
ahead. I'm sorry, Corey.
You good? I think it's more of a on a spiritual level than it is anything right now, because it's going to be some violence because it's always built that way, but this time it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. It's a little more. It's a little more things going on than meets the eye.
Okay, Javier, what are your thoughts? And then what happened to uh Melanin? It's Melanin, right? What happened to him? I'm sorry, Javier. What's up?
no, you're fine. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. No, I mean, I was just listening. I mean, you always hear something, a place where you want to chime in. But I mean, I guess to start, I guess I saw some people were commenting about like the whole, Puerto Ricans and Dominicans don't claim, blacks, this and that. Like I can say some of that, I'm not everybody else, so I can't really speak for them, but I would say that some of that is true. However, I don't do that. I've never done that. Like I'm dark. I would be. I guess you can consider me dark skinned naturally dark skinned Puerto Rican. But like for instance, my mother, she's light skinned Puerto Rican with more like Spaniard, other things in her. While my father is dark skinned, while he has Chinese and whatever else there may be there. We don't know. I mean, even statistics and percentages. Like I don't. I have an issue with it because there could be many different inaccuracies. So like to even speak on that and be like, oh, I'm 40% this, was like, okay, well, how much do you know that though, and who gave you that, those results? I mean, I've heard about African ancestry, like not comparing to ancestry.com. I don't know how accurate they are. I would venture to think that they would be hopefully a little bit more accurate than others are doing. But in any case, I just don't trust those types of things. Like, when it comes to that, what I like to do is, if anything, like the lady said earlier, the young woman, she said she'd rather be, say you melanated, which is perfectly fine by me too. Because I mean, like when it comes down to physical, when it comes down to like you said, the skin color. I mean, what do you? We know what a fake tan looks like. We know what naturally, melanated skin looks like. I mean, you can, if you look at it hard, hopefully don't stare at people like that. But I mean, we can just tell. As far as we're concerned, I don't know about other people, but that's, for me, I can say, I don't say, oh, I'm black or that I'm white. I definitely do not identify with white. I don't identify with a lot of things, but that is one thing that I won't. But the problem is, if you look at it, like I said, my mother, she's light skinned Puerto Rican, but she can get naturally tan. I mean, she just naturally does. However, she has Spaniard in her. So it's like, how much of what do you have? Obviously, like she's not, you could tell she's not, black. She's not fully black. But my father is like completely, dark skinned. But there's just a lot of inaccuracies, and you can't really say who's who when it comes to that. I mean, that's Puerto Rican and Dominican. There's so many different ones. There's white Puerto Ricans, black Puerto Ricans. My brother, he's like completely white. He's white. We have different fathers, but his father on his side has more Italian in him, potentially more Spaniard, of course. Um, and whatever else there may be in there. So like that made me question a lot, in the recent years. Well, then what exactly am I then? And should I go by somebody else's definition? Because it's like if I ask you guys and be like, oh, well, what am I? Well, then that asks a lot of questions within itself. He doesn't even know what he is. But it's like at the end of the day, nobody really knows what they are. And I know people might jump at that and be like, well, I know what I
I
am.
know who I
It's like,
am.
No,
well,
no. First
well,
of
there
all,
you go. Look, you
I
see,
think
you see.
everybody on this panel knows who they are, and that's why they're here.
Well,
I think we say we don't know who we are, but I think we do know who we are because we're all on this
well,
panel discussing
so.
the label of black. So clearly we all
mm,
associate on some level with that label, and that's why we're moving in a space with people who are like us. In
right.
fairness, right? It just to keep it real with you guys, which is
Well, no,
fine. I
that's
mean,
what
I
I'm saying. So
understand the nuances
understanding.
of it, but like
Mm,
we know who we are. I don't think
no,
any of
I'm
us
not gonna
don't
say.
know
I'm
who we
not
are.
gonna speak for anybody else. I would never speak for. I would never do that. Like you wanna. That's your business. You know what I'm saying? You feel how you feel. You want like. I'm not saying that it's not. That it's not true. That's the thing. Is that it's okay to say that you don't know, because first of all, for me, I know. I mean, I was saying it in the comments. All this stuff was pretty much taught to me. It's not like I was born knowing. Oh, I'm Puerto Rican. Like, no, that's not what happened. What happened was when I got old enough and I was able to, with the tools that they gave us, like English. I mean, you just look at those. I look at it as a tool that I use to communicate in order to survive. You know what I'm saying? Amongst everything that's going on.
But I
But
mean
as far
that
as
in
I'm
that case,
concerned,
there's nothing that we know for sure. Like there's
well,
there's really
that's
almost
my
nothing that we know for sure
that's
by
my
that
point.
logic, right? I'm not
But
disagreeing with you. I'm just saying this
right, right.
versions onto a an ideology, and there are people who believe like there's nothing that we know for sure. Like I don't even know when I look out the window, if the things that I don't immediately see in my frame of vision are there until I actually look out the window, or I don't know for sure that any of you are real. Like we don't know anything for sure. I know that's not what you're saying, Javier. I'm just saying there is an ideology that stems from kind of your train of thought, which is that there's nothing that we know for sure. We can't be sure of anything. And there's a whole I don't want to call it a religion, but I'm sure you guys so I'm sure I'm not the only one who's met people who live life by this philosophy. Like there's no evidence of anything, but then I go back to it's also the reason why you bother to define what blackness is or isn't. I was very clear on why the identifier of blackness matters to me. It's not because of racial investment, because I don't believe in race. It's not because of culture, because I don't think just because somebody has dark skin that they share a culture. Um, it's solely because the world has chose to isolate Black people in a certain way that is unjust. So even if I weren't Black, right, I would hope that I would have an affinity toward identifying these people who are being attacked and brutalized based on their skin color. And that has nothing even to do with my own Blackness, even though I'm affected by it. It has to do with the fact that I think it's very important that we're able to advocate. I think it's very important that we're able to uplift and adjust. And I think it's important as a person, and this kind of goes to what Patchy was saying earlier, because this is an aspect of it, although he said it's somewhat negative. I think, again, the negativity is not on our shoulders because we didn't make these systems. But I definitely think that for the tide to change, we need to identify what we are so that we can target those populations for uplifting and protecting and embracing, and also call people out when they are engaging in behaviors that are abusive to those populations, because unfortunately that is the state of the black skinned person on the planet. That is the state of the dark skinned person or the melanated person or the whatever you want to call them, regardless of your ancestry, regardless of if you have a smattering of this and a splash of that or whatever. But I think I often wonder, like, I understand my motivation for identifying or not identifying blackness. I understand Patchy's motivation for identifying or not identifying blackness, but I don't understand Corey's. Well, I kind of understand yours, Corey, but maybe you can flesh that a little bit more. Or
Yes, I can.
Uncle Locke's or Menelik's. Like, I think it's important that we know why it's even relevant to us, because I think
But
the
listen, Miss
relevancy is
Irene,
different for everybody.
if we,
Hmm.
Miss Irene, I'm sorry for cutting you off. To go with what you're saying,
You sound
that's
really
cool.
low, Uncle Locke. Is he just low for me, or is he low for everybody?
He's low
Say
for
I'm low
something.
for
Yeah,
everybody.
everybody.
I think he need to come closer to the mic.
You good now? You
Can you
good
hear
now?
me?
Oh
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 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 yeah. What I don't mean. I apologize for cutting you off. Um, I can go along with what you're saying in reference to that. If those people that we advocate for and cape for and work with to get them liberated sign have like a nice contract that once they get what they get, they won't betray us. Because historically speaking, that's what happens. Every time black people help other people, once they get theirs, they say fuck us. So that's why I'm more on the division. Black people in America, 13 people who came from the 13 colonies, type of time. Now, like I said, in the
14.
70s in India, the untouchables, they identified with the Black Panthers. So did the black people in Israel and Australia. So if we can have a actual a contract where okay, you get yours, we work together, then that's cool. But if they ain't got no, since if they don't have no actual a relationship with us, what is to say that the same thing that has historically happened to black people who advocate for other people who are oppressed, that they won't repeat the same thing that Asians did or the Jews did? I'm sorry for saying that. I know that's a trippy thing in YouTube. Or the other people that we advocated for. Who's to say that a repeat performance won't happen with them that we cape
We
for or
we we have to advocate for each other first, and make sure all the dots and all the T's are crossed. We have to. We can't include no one else until we get this mess cleaned up between us. That's just the truth. My fault for
I
cutting
agree
you
with
off, though.
Corey that.
Go ahead.
Mm, oh no, I'm sorry. I was gonna say I agree. You said before it was like dealing with spiritual. That's why like I kind of touch on all that. I'm not trying to say that nobody knows, and like that's like a different conversation. But that's like where I start, like from the. I like to think of it in my head as like getting back to the basics, and like spiritually, like that's a. I guess you could say that's a good start because a lot of people. I mean, you don't even have to be spiritual. I'm not religious. I'm not spiritual. I don't like believe in a lot of what has been in my mind, to me, taught to me. I like to just go by like physical, what I can see, what I can, just physical. Like I like to praise the earth, and the sun and the moon, not like something I've never seen before that I have no, even if it was in my experience, like like if I said I saw God, just yeah, it's only in my experience. It would not be in anybody else's, But I mean, a spiritual level definitely would be something like I like to, I mean, not to brag or whatever, but I mean, everybody should honestly get into it. It's like meditation. I mean, I remember you said some time ago you don't really, do yoga or stuff like that, but it's like, see, that shouldn't even be seen as like, because I actually used to look at it as more like a female thing, like females would do that. But then I learned recently, in recent years, that is actually for everybody. Like depending on what you want to do. I'm not talking about
Well,
Pilates. I'm
yoga
talking
is
about
like a
like
religious thing, though. It's
well,
like
no, it's not
literally.
No,
actually.
salute,
No,
salute.
no,
It's
it
not.
really no. I'm gonna say this because everybody says no, it's not, but yes, it is. And having
Hinduism.
worked with having worked with people from India, first generation from India, for many years, um, yoga is a part of their major country religion. Now, we don't recognize that we are practicing their religion, but it is a part of their religion. It's a religious practice. That meditative practice that they have is a religious practice. Now, in the Western world, we've embraced it, but it doesn't stop. It's like praying, you know what I mean, is a religious practice. Now, you might choose to pray but that doesn't stop it from being defined by the religious practice that it is. And I want to say this, when we talk spiritualism, but we try to remove God, like that's not possible. When we say we don't know, like something we can't see spirits either. The idea of spirit, right, is the idea that the essence, and I do believe this, of what is a human is an invisible thing that animates our body. It is our spirit, and that's our true essence. So when we talk spirituality, we're talking about the essence that is life, right? And so we are then getting into a conversation that does include spiritual beings at that point and the view of us as spiritual beings and the view of a spiritual plane. So it's interesting to hear people try to separate these things. Now, I don't do yoga because it's a religious practice, because I worked with people from India for 12 years and we used to have religious discussions. And it was really
But not all of
fascinating
them look at it
because
like that.
they considered there to be many practitioners of their faith because people participate in yoga. And what you find is hardcore yogis will ultimately end up actually taking treks to India to practice yoga with the religious leaders of their culture. That's actually something that people who are hardcore into yoga do. So maybe the novice person doing yoga doesn't recognize that they're engaging in worship, but those who are deeper into yoga even make it a point to travel to India so that they can go with those masters, right? And they can practice in a religious setting. So that's not my opinion. It really is part of their religion.
Can
And
I
just
say
because
I
something?
think
people are ignorant of that doesn't mean that it's not.
sorry.
Yeah, I want to touch on
Okay.
something real quick. Um, a lot of black people are not Indian. You're not Indian, man. Y'all might be mixed with Indian, but you're from Africa. You're not
No,
from
we're not
America.
from
That's what I'm
Africa.
saying.
We're not
Yes,
from
you
Africa,
are.
dude.
Listen,
No, I'm not. I did.
Native Americans were slave owners.
Native,
Native American in Oklahoma.
Native
Hold on,
American,
in
the
Oklahoma,
people from Native
Native Americans
American.
were slave owners. Native
Let
Americans were
me break
slave
this down
owners.
for you.
Native
Let me
American. Hold
break
on, let
this
me just
down
say
for you.
something. Hold on, you ain't gonna let me say something before you say whatever, nigga.
Well, this is going to
Go
be
Native
ahead. Go ahead.
interesting.
Americans.
Okay, wait. I think this is going to be interesting. I'm really interested to hear this play out. So
Okay, let me just say this last thing before he say that. Okay.
Let Reem say, if you don't mind,
Go
what he's
ahead.
going to say,
Let
and
him
then
go. Let him
Corey,
go. Let him
Yeah.
go.
Corey
Native
after
American. Yep.
wait a second. Can you guys hear me? Do I sound
Yeah.
funny or
Yeah.
something?
You good. You good. I'm good. Go ahead.
Corey,
Go ahead.
after after Reem says what he has to say, I think Menelik is having a problem with his connection. After Reem says what he has to say, then I'm very interested to hear your response, Corey, because I'm very fascinated
Oh
by this
yeah.
line of conversation. Go ahead, Reem. What are you saying?
Yeah, me too. Native Americans were slave owners. Native Americans we were slave owners in Oklahoma, boy. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You're not Native American. You might be mixed with Native American. You might have some Native
Mix.
American like blood or something because some of the slaves slept with the Native Americans. But you are what your father is. If your father black, you black. My father's not black. So anyway, like I said, man, Native Americans were slave owners. You can look it up in Oklahoma. That's the reason why Black Wall Street got so big, because after we freed y'all, we gave y'all free land. And you don't have to fight for us. We don't want y'all to fight for us. You're black. You're not even Native American. We don't. So that's all I had to say. You don't have to feel like you have to fight for us. No. Go ahead. Your turn, man.
Well, Native Americans aren't even from here. Those people that you see as Native Americans, they're not from here. They claim they came from the Bering Strait. We was already here when they got here. We were already here. So they took on a lot of our customs. And no, they weren't slave owners. Some of our people were
Yes, they
owners.
were. Yes,
Some
they were.
some some of our people owned white slaves.
Well, can
Okay.
I just come in here and say
Now
that
now
No,
now
while some Native Americans did own slaves, not all Native Americans did, and that's not the history of the combined group of Native population that was here during slavery times. Like I said, my ancestors' history with Native Americans did not include them being owned. my ancestors' history with Native American included them all living in a swamp together and killing white people. So clearly everybody wasn't on the same page, right? Native American isn't any more of a monolith than Blackness is a monolith. And there were Native American populations. And remember, when we talk about the Seminoles, that was not a tribe. That was a group of different tribes that collectively were called the Seminoles. So when we start talking about Native Americans' participation with slaves, we know that many Native American tribes joined with African
That
slaves to
would
basically kill white people.
Irene, you remember what I
that would
said?
be the
Irene,
Creek.
you remember what I said
That
about an hour ago, Irene? The first thing I said, you wasn't on here, Corey, but Irene, remember this.
I was in the audience.
Oh, okay. You remember when I said there's about three main Native American tribes: the Mosquitoes, the Sioux, and the Seminoles. The Seminoles, they look a little, kind of blackish a little bit. You know what I'm saying? There were more than one Native American tribe. After all, the United States and Canada is a huge North and Central and
It
South America is a huge continent.
it's 500. It's 500 nations. That- to
Right.
be
Something
exact,
like that. Yeah.
it's 500
Something like
nations.
that. 500. Something like that. Yeah.
But the ones who did contracts with the people who came here, they are classified as the what is it, the five I can't the five civilized tribes. That's what they're classified as. But it's 500 nations of
Exactly.
Indians.
That's like when you go to Australia, right? They got the Native Americans there look black. They look like they're dark. They're very dark. The Native
The Australians, the original ones, yes, they dark
right.
skinned people. But I say that now, have anybody ever read Public Law 90-284, which is the Civil Rights Act of 1968? Because everybody kind of glossed over that one. If you read that, you didn't see no Native Americans fighting with our people, did you? Right? So it's basically rights for Indians. Like Title II in Public Law 90-284 are the rights of Indians. And everything in it has everything for Indians, not black people, not African Americans, not Africans. Indians. That's who we are. That's who we've been. We have
Okay, well
always been
pull that
here.
up. Pull that up.
You
Pull
Say
it
said
up
it's
pull
of,
it
so
up.
you can
of
yeah, pull it
Australia,
up so you can share your screen.
not
Let's
Native
see.
Americans of Australia.
I don't,
That's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant.
hold on, I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, pull it up so you can share your screen.
Let's see. How do I do it?
How do you pull it up or how do you share your screen?
Yeah, how do I share the screen?
Oh, let me see if I can get if there's something I can do so that you can share. Um, hmm.
I see share at the bottom, but I'm on a computer. I don't know if
Oh
it's just my
yeah, there
phone.
should be a share on there. If you're on your phone, yeah, I
I'm
don't
on my
see
phone. I don't have.
oh yeah, I don't see a share option. Or put the link in the back chat. I'll share it.
All right. Let's see. Public Law 90-284. Let's see. I don't even know how to get back to the original thing I was on. Hold on.
Or
Not
if
very
anybody
good
in the
at
chat finds it.
I need another wine cooler. I'm about to go to the store while I'm on live.
it.
Who said that, Reem? Reem, don't say that. Don't say that. Because you know they always already saying Indians like to drink. And you keep trying to
Right.
talk about a wine cooler on here.
Hey, I don't even drink at all. Not at all. Let's see. Oh, I know where I could go.
Yeah.
Public Law 90-284.
Yeah, I think the Seminole Indians look similar to those Indians in Australia because they call everybody in. Remember, the white
I
people
mean, they
started
didn't
that.
have wide noses and wide lips. I mean, in all honesty, and I'm not I'm not Black Seminole, you guys. I'm not. But in all honesty, they looked a lot like me, like as far as feature wise.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
can I read something? I read something right when the white people came here. They thought everybody was Indian because even in India, you got dark Indians and you got brown Indians.
Well,
They just classified
well, that's
everybody as
another thing.
Indian.
That's another thing. India wasn't called India back in those times. It was called Hindustan. It wasn't called India until 1947.
Yeah,
You can look
India. I
that
think
up.
India and Pakistan need to stick together. India and China, they need to stick together. India,
Wait, I want to pull
Pakistan,
this up.
we need
What
to
is it
stick
called? I'll
together.
pull it up. Public what?
Public Law
Mm-hmm.
90-284.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry, you guys.
Can't
Yeah,
seem to
China. Go
get it to
ahead, man.
come
You
on.
got it. Go ahead. Okay. Now I was just saying that Indians and Chinese, all that, man, we need all sit together, man. The white people did a number, man. White people, they did a number. They did a number on people, man.
But
I'm about to start
the
driving,
word
so I'm gonna have
Indian,
it on mute.
the word Indian derives from the word indigo. At one point in time, indigo was the darkest color in the spectrum.
When we get off this topic, I like to bring something in, going back to the original one.
Oh, hold up. I'm pulling it up. Why is my sound so bad? I'm just curious about this. To believe it or not, in all the time I've been on YouTube, I've never talked to a Moor. Never. Not one time. This is my
Well, I'm
first
not a
time.
Moor.
Oh, you're not a
I'm
Moor?
not a Moor.
What do you
No, I'm
consider
not a Moor.
yourself then?
I'm an American Indian. It's a
Negative,
difference.
Oh.
negative.
How
That's
is what is
crazy.
the difference? I
Came up
thought
and say that. Came up and say that. That's crazy, man.
I'm an American Indian.
You're mixed with African though. So I mean it's fine if you say that, but
No,
you
no, 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 no. I'm not, because Africans are white
okay, brother. I'll let you have that. I'm
originally.
gonna start driving.
Originally, Africans are white.
Hey, how you guys?
wow, now that's something I have never heard. I've never heard that before. Fascinating. Do you mean white skinned? Like they had light skin?
Yeah, light skinned white people.
How would
Yeah,
they survive?
what we call white people. That's
But
where
how
they
would they
derive from.
survive in Africa with that skin? How would they survive on the equator? There's no equatorial people with light skin. How would that happen?
Well, they survive over there right now, don't they? I mean,
But yeah, but with lots of
they
modern
come
technology, but
they come from
with lots of
they
modern technology, they survive
they
there with the
they,
ability to use sunscreens, with the
they
ability to
come
be
from
indoors for long periods of time, travel
where
from
they're
place
not
to
from
place
here.
in vehicles. But to be
They're not from
nomadic and
here.
living in equatorial climates, they're not suited for that.
They're, they're not from here.
I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just throwing him a bone. There, I believe I don't know the history like that, but I
Where's the
think the
Caucasus?
Romans.
Where's the Caucasus Mountains located? Where's they located? They located
Between
in Central
Russia,
Africa.
between between Russia and Asia. It's
They
literally the
locate
border
it,
between Russia and Asia.
it
Part of the Caucasus Mountains is in Russia and part of it's in Asia.
and some of it's in Central Africa.
What do you mean? It's one mountain range though.
Right. But it goes down into North Africa. That's where it's at.
Wait, okay. The Caucasus it Central Africa, there's no mountains in Central Africa. It's rainforest.
You got to look it up on the map.
No,
It's
I
there.
know I teach geography. I'm telling there's no mountains in Central Africa. It's a rainforest. the rainforest is in Central Africa. It's what causes the climate of the whole continent, is that there's an intertropical convergence zone that's dependent upon that
Hey, hold on,
rainforest,
Irene,
and it
Irene,
Correct.
hold
creates
Right.
on.
South of
Wait,
Ethiopia.
hold
Correct.
right.
on, Irene. This nigga don't give a fuck about that shit.
No,
Okay,
I
this
think
is
he
Yo,
this.
well,
yo,
he's
No,
yo,
having the
yo,
this
yo,
is
conversation. That's
not.
yo,
not
yo,
This
my
fair
is
to
man,
not.
say.
This is
my man,
not
don't
a.
That's not
disrespect
fair
me
to
like
This
that.
is
say.
not a learned
Don't,
dude. Okay,
don't,
this
No,
is
don't,
no,
this
that's
is
don't,
a
not fair
don't,
to
dude.
that's
don't
not fair to
disrespect me
say.
like that.
Yeah,
This is
that's
a
not
Don't
fair to
dude
disrespect
say.
me
that.
like that.
This is a dude that lives in a
Oh wow.
fantasy land. Okay,
Do not
he
disrespect
lives
me
in a
like
No,
that
I mean
ever.
fantasy
we
land.
have we
Don't
don't know. In fairness,
don't,
we're
don't
just
waste your
if he
time, Irene.
if he's having the conversation, then in fairness, then he clearly does want to have the conversation. I'm just trying to visualize, like I'm picturing it in my head what he's
No,
saying,
he
and
he
there
he just
maybe.
want to sit here and live out a fantasy. That's what he's here for.
Okay, I'm living a fantasy. Okay,
But
Yeah, yeah,
we
bro.
don't
I'm living a fantasy.
we
But
Yeah,
well
don't ever
in
disrespect me because if you was in my face, you would never disrespect me in that manner.
nigga,
I
I'm
tell you
not
that right now.
disrespecting you.
I'm gonna tell you again.
You
Do not
disrespecting
disrespect me.
yourself. You
No, I'm
disrespecting
not.
yourself, bro, by
No, I'm
sitting up
not.
here calling yourself an
No, I'm not.
American Indian after
That's
the
who I am.
After the American Indians had your people in slavery, nigga.
Facts.
Fuck wrong with
Facts.
Whatever.
you.
Facts. That's facts.
That's
That's a
not.
fact.
That
Fuck,
is
fuck,
not fact.
fuck,
okay,
That
I
is
fuck
want
not
wrong,
I
fact.
can
fuck
we
wrong with you, nigga.
Look,
okay.
like I said before, if you was in my face, you would never say this. You
Nigga,
would
I would
never
say
say this.
all this and more in your fucking face, nigga.
No, you would be laying on that
After you,
ground. And you would be
nigga,
laying on that ground.
you gonna be on that ground with me. We both gonna
Okay,
be getting our licks in.
okay, because
Eh,
we're on the
no,
wait,
you would
men,
be
please.
laying. You would be laying your ass
We
right on that ground. Don't ever
technic
fucking talk to me like that.
okay. Okay,
I tried to
so
be cordial with you. Stop. Don't ever talk to me like that.
Nigga talk about, don't ever talk to me like that.
You an ignorant ass person. You ignorant as hell. You're ignorant. You ignorant. Like I said, if we was face to face, I would knock your simple ass right out. I would knock you. I would simply knock your simple ass out for real.
okay, oh wait,
Like
can
I
we
said, look up public
y'all?
law. Look up public law
Okay,
90-284.
I am.
It tells
Okay,
you.
so
It tells you. It
can you
tells you
stop
everything you
laughing
need
so
to
I can
know.
talk?
It tells you everything you need to
Woo,
know about who
shit.
we are. I don't care what he says because he's an idiot. He can
Okay,
be
so
that way.
I want to have this conversation because other people are gonna come by like by this and I want to have the conversation because I've never heard this before. So I am
This
pulling
is
up.
what.
I've already pulled up the act, but I want to talk about what it is. I don't want to just start there. So
Right. Right.
it's important for us to understand that this is not the original Civil Rights Act. The original Civil Rights Act was the Civil Rights Act
1866.
of 1964, right?
1866 was the
Okay, well,
original. Was the
okay,
first.
right,
Then
but wait,
1964,
wait,
and
wait.
then
But when we talk about the expansion to the 1968 Act, which is the one you want us to look at, it was an expansion on the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which is why I'm starting there because it was an expansion on that act. Can we agree on that?
yeah, we can agree on that. And the only reason
Okay.
why Martin Luther King made it an expansion to it because he felt like he didn't get everything he wanted in the 1964 Civil Rights Act and for his people. He even said he led his people into a burning building. So
So
that being said, he made this one.
okay, so in the original act, when we talk about the Civil Rights Act of 1964, this is an act that is specifically okay. Maybe we can even back it up, but this is specifically Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Okay, and when we talk about the expansion on this part of the act, this is specifically the part of the act that deals with employment. and creating a fair employment setting. The specific part
Right.
of the act, like I said, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So Title VII specifically, when we speak of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, it's an expansion on Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So this is talking about discrimination in the workplace. And so I
Right.
wanted to just take a look at the original act to see what was specified in the original act. And they didn't specify any particular race, color, um, religion, or sex. They just said
That
race, color, religion, and sex. Is that correct?
that 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 that's correct. But that's why
Okay,
I referred you to the
right.
1968.
Right. So then the
Um,
subsequent expansion of the act, but then my question is, are you claiming that the original act was not encompassing of Black people?
no, it was encompassing of Indians because that's who they knew
No, no, the
they were.
original, the 1964 act that
The
that
1960
limited discrimination in employment based on race, color, religion, sex, and national
and creed.
origin.
Yeah, yeah,
That was inclusive of what we consider in the modern day to be Black people.
right.
Okay. And so there was an expansion on that act, which is the one you want us to look in on, which was done 4 years later, specifically speaking of employment, right? Because
Um,
again,
and,
I'm
and
sorry.
and fair housing and fair housing
Oh yes, okay. So it was
and
employment.
fair
That's
housing
correct. That's correct. And fair housing, and this is an
and
expansion specifically on Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of
and
1964. So not
and
the whole act,
and
but Title VII.
and in the 68, the right to self-govern and all of that is in there. It's in Title Two of it. In Title Two of the 1968 Civil Rights Act, it specifically says the rights of Indians, right? Right at the top of it. It says the rights of Indians, and it lists everything, all the rights that we have. He wasn't talking about Native Americans. That
Okay,
those
so
people you see.
let's take a look at this because I do want to take a look at this. So, you're bringing up Title II of the 1964 Act, right? Because we have to
68,
understand. I'm sorry.
68,
Oh, of the
68.
1968. Okay. All right. Okay. So, just so that everybody's clear on what we're about to look at, I'll go ahead and I'm going to show it on the screen. Hold on. Let me come in here so that I can show it on the screen. Okay. So, um, are we looking at it? Yes, we are. Okay. So, we have the original act that he's not talking about, which is Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and this is an act that prohibits discrimination based on um, race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. And we both agree that this is an all-encompassing act that included the people that we now know as Black. Now, um, what he's talking about is an amendment or an extension of this act, which was done 4 years later in 1968. And this is often referred to as the Indian Civil Rights Act. It's actually referred to that way. Um, and so in this act, which is nicknamed the Indian Civil Rights Act, it literally does state, and he's correct, Indian several times. It specifically brings it up for the purposes. Um, Let me go back to where it starts to talk about. Okay, so Indian tribe means any tribe. Indian means any person. Um, and then it talks about Indian tribes exercising power of self-government. This is why it was labeled the Indian Civil Rights Act. I guess where my question is, right, is This is an expansion on an act that included what we now know as Black people, where the term Indian was never used. So I'm trying to understand how, because of this basically amendment or extension of that original law, how we are identifying that Indian in this case is speaking specifically of Black-skinned people.
Because our people, well, my people, to be exact, are Muskegon Indians or called Creek Indians. That's who we are. That's who we always have been. So when my people marched in all of that, so that's who it's referring to. That's who it's referring to. It's referring to us. It not because there's no such thing as a black person. It's a
Okay,
crayon
so are
color.
you saying that your people were not
Let me.
included in the original Civil Rights Act of
The Civil Rights
1964?
Act, every Civil Rights Act that was ever made, as far as from 1868 to 1964 and then 1968, has always included us. Period.
It actually
All right.
included the
Hey, what's going
Moors.
on, guys?
The Moors from up north
Can I?
started all that, brother.
No, the Moors did not
Hey.
start that.
Okay,
Okay.
so when we talk about the
Let me.
civil,
I will say what the
when we
Moors
talk
did
about the
start.
Civil Rights
The
Act,
Moors
in
actually
fairness,
started the
when we talk about
the Moors actually started
Mhm.
the U.S. government. They actually did start that. I can say that
Wow, okay, so when we talk about
What?
the civil rights, when we talk about the Civil
they
Rights
did.
Bill, when we talk about the when
Sorry.
we talk about the Civil Rights Bill of 1866, when we talk about that particular bill, it is a bill that mandates that basically all people that were born in the United States, with the exception of the American Indians, were declared citizens of the United States.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
but we know that. And in that declaration of citizenship, many people who are black skinned were given citizenship. So if they were given citizenship, this goes back to
They was
that
tricked into it.
so you guys, when I just recently covered, this is crazy, we're talking about this. When I just recently covered the Dred Scott case, the Civil Rights Bill of 1866 reversed the judge's ruling in that case that black people were not citizens. And in that case, Black people were defined as those people brought over from Africa for the purposes of being cargo as slaves. So that particular case, the Dred Scott case, identified who was considered Black and who was considered not a citizen when it came to Blackness. And in that case, they specified that the Indian was sovereign, but that the African descendant or slaves or black people that they were not sovereign. Do you guys remember? I just looked at this case. I'm not going to pull the case up, but it actually defines a difference between black and Indian in that case. If you guys don't believe me, go back to
Right.
that video. It's like the last
If I
video.
had
No, I so I want
if
to
I had
Let
follow.
me.
time, I
I
would
want to follow
explain.
it down the
If I
road to
had
your logic. So we have the
okay,
Dred Scott case. We have the Dred Scott case, which mentions both descendants of slaves, either free or still in bondage, and it also mentions the sovereign as it refers to Indian tribes. And it makes a distinct difference in that case. In fact, let me just pull it up. It makes a distinct difference in that case between the black person and the Indian person. And the reason that I bring this up, and I want to take a look at it because I want to follow your logic because I really truly want to understand it, right? Um, when we follow this down the road, let me go ahead and pull up the case so everybody can see it. Because when we bring up the Civil Rights Act, All right, so here goes a typed version of the case. And I want to go to the place where it speaks about Native Americans and Black people. And then we're going to go to the Civil Rights Act of 1886, which overturned this case and was the precedent for all the other Civil Rights Act leading up to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and then the Civil Rights Act of 1968. So when we go back to the Dred Scott case that declared that Black people were not citizens, I want to go to the part in this case where it specifically delineates Black people from Native American people. Okay. So let us do that. And then
I'm not a
I
Native
want you to
American.
kind of walk me through, I want you to walk me through how what you're saying attaches to this particular history and what was overturned in the Civil Rights Act of 1866, because you said it was always talking about um it's that you said it was always talking about Native Americans, right?
American Indians.
American
American
Indians.
Indians.
I apologize. American Indians. Okay, so let me get to that part of the case. So all right, so it says, you guys give me 1 second because I'm trying to be quick for the sake of you guys.
Oh, you're fine.
All right. So cargo is okay. So first, the identification of who Black people are. The Negro race. He is what he says, and he talks about if the Negro race is a part of if they're citizens of the United States, and if they were considered when they wrote the Declaration of Independence. And he goes over to identify who they are. He says um, that they are descendants of the slave trade, right? That they were procuring cargoes of those people on the African coast and transporting them for sale in those parts of the Union where their labor was found to be profitable and suited to the climate and production. And this traffic was openly carried on and fortunes accumulated by it without reproach from the people of the states, for those people yesterday who were saying the white people weren't on board, where they resided. And it can hardly be supposed in the states where it was then countenance in its worst form, that is, in the seizure and transportation, the people could have regarded those who were emancipated as entitled to equal rights with themselves. This case established that Black people did not have American citizenship. And I want to go to the part where, because he also talks about Native Americans, right? And he actually compares Native Americans to Black people and says that we are not the same because Native Americans are sovereign. So hold on 1 second while I get there. Hold on.
And China is not the enemy. China is not our enemy. They're gonna free us. China, the Chinese people are gonna free us, man.
Okay, so I think that this might be it because they talk about naturalizing immigrants to other countries. Um,
1871. That's the Naturalization Act.
so hold on. I want to get to the specific part where they bring up Native Americans and juxtapose Native Americans with Black people and say that they're
China
Thoughtful nights. I don't have my fingers in my ears, cuz.
and that Rod, Chinese people got wide noses like Africans. The Mongolians got wide noses like African people do.
but Chinese people don't like black skin either.
Ah man,
Not
I
the
don't
modern
know. You
ones.
know
Do
what?
do you, hey,
Not the
I
hey,
mean,
modern ones.
hey, Irene,
I
Irene.
provide evidence of this in my video where I talk about Asians essentially being white, and when I say white, I mean they have a white culture, and I give examples of religious festivals they have, yearly things that they do to degrade blackness. Like they really don't like dark skin.
And I think that's
Irene,
because
Irene,
we need somebody to speak out. Like personally, I have ancestry from the Buried State, Native American, man. And I actually don't think that they
Irene,
should treat black people bad.
excuse me, Irene, are you on Clubhouse?
No, I'm not.
Hey, can I, excuse me, may I say
Let me
something?
say something. Oh, go ahead.
Mhm. All right, my name Kev 504, and I was listening to the brother a
I'm gonna
little
drop a link
earlier.
for you on Clubhouse because I have to go right now.
Okay.
Well,
Wait,
okay,
who is
take care.
saying
If you
that?
want to say something, go ahead. I
Yeah.
can wait, man.
Is that Corey?
That boy's stunting, man.
Is
Yeah.
that Corey that's
Anyway,
saying that? Oh, okay. Well, then never mind. If he's leaving, we're not going to go there. But anyway, I was really going to pull it up for his sake. But those of you, I pulled it up in my last video, and I really wish he could have stayed for the conversation because I was trying to follow his logic, right? So as you guys know, and I read it out loud and I showed it on screen when I did my thing on Dred Scott. In the Dred Scott case, they made a delineation between um, Native Americans or American Indians, as he called them, and Negroes. They identified Black people, Negroes, as people brought from Africa for the purposes of slavery as cargo. And then they talked about how Black people were nothing like Native Americans who had a sovereign nation, who had never decided to like socially. Integrate with white people, and who had white people had made treaties with, and who they had even asked to participate in war with, right? And so he made this delineation. You guys can go to my video on Dred Scott, and I show that part of the court case. Now, when the brother brought up the Civil Rights Bill of 1866, the Civil Rights Bill of 1866 was designed to give citizenship to overturn the Dred Scott case, where a delineation is made between the Negro and the American Indian. It was designed to overthrow that case and to give everybody who was born in the United States automatic United States citizenship, with the exception of the American Indians. And so that's why I was trying to follow him when he said it's always been about the American Indians. I was like, well, okay, the Dred Scott case came out and it defined Negro and it juxtaposed us to Native Americans. And then in 1866, when they overturned that case, it was inclusionary of the identified Negro that was bought into chattel slavery from Africa. He was very clear on where they came from. And it excluded the American Indians. And so then when we move forward, and that's what I wanted him to walk me through. Because then if he said, as he said, 1866 led into our understanding of of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, then my question is, at which point, like at which point did the Negro aspect get removed? I just was wanting him to clarify that, only because he brought up the Civil Rights Act, and the very original Civil Rights Act was designed to overturn the Dred Scott decision. And it just happens in that decision, Native Americans or American Indians and descendants of slaves or people who are brought here um, for work as cargo were made distinct groups. So I wish he would have stayed and kind of like explain that, because I was trying to
He's
follow
bugging
his
out.
logic, but I was having a hard time. And in honesty, he lost me a little bit when he started talking about mountains in Central Africa, just because I teach geography and I teach African mountain ranges and also African climate. And the rainforest in Africa, number one, is one of the two lungs of the earth. It's how our earth literally creates oxygen. That
So
one,
it's
and the
definitely right.
rainforest in South America. And number
That
two,
one
that
right.
rainforest dictates the entire climate of Africa. It's the reason that the edges, the northern and southern tips of Africa, have a Mediterranean climate, followed by two types of desert climates,
Irene,
followed by the grasslands. So I was just trying to I wanted to understand, and I'm not willing to put him down. I'm just saying I wanted to understand where his thought process was, because it's interesting we
Irene,
were
I
just
know.
talking about
All right,
this on
It's
my
a
all
sad.
channel.
right.
Irene, it's sad.
But
And you know
may I
why?
ask
You
a
know why he
question?
probably thinks like that. You know why he probably thinks like that, Irene. Irene, because we have how many million people in this country? Irene, you know why he thinks like that? They slaughtered so many Indians that you don't even see them that much. They went along the trail, the Trail of Tears. Remember the Trail of Tears? Whatever, they just kept
The
going
Trail
west.
of Tears.
Hmm.
Exactly. They killed so many of
They
my
were
people
put
that
there.
you got people like him thinking that he's Indian because he probably doesn't see that many Indians around. He probably doesn't see that many Indians around, and he's like, "Oh, well, we're Indian." You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. His logic is sad, man. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying,
Can
man.
I
We
can
need
I
to
say
fix
Let me
Well,
that.
something
say
on
something
that
real
for a
quick.
second, ma'am?
I really think without him being able to share what his logic was, which I wish he could have stayed to do that, I can't say if his logic was sad or not. I just was really trying to understand it because, like I said, when we bring in the Civil Rights Act, there's a traceable history of why that act was passed. And it just happens that the judge was such an ardent racist that he did bring up Native Americans and basically saying that the black man was nothing like the Native American, and this is why. And it just happens that that is the case that had to be overturned with the original Civil Rights Act. So when we get back in the history, I wanted him to explain that, especially the Caucasus Mountain
He
things, because
can't. He can't
I
do
think
it.
it's a little
I
bit of truth
respect
in there
Irene.
because
Can I say
I
something, ma'am?
respect
Maybe
people.
do you think he was talking about
I
before there
respect
was
people like Boko
there was a
Haram.
shift in the continents?
no, I don't
Maybe he
think
was
he was
referring
talking
to
about
that
that. I think what he might have been
No.
because
referring
that would
to
connect
is
Africa
he
to a
might
lot
have
of
been
that.
referring to in Ethiopia, there is a mountain range, and we know that in that part of Africa, in that east part of Africa, their
Hmm.
skulls read as Caucasian skulls if you
Yeah.
don't have the context of where you found the skull. So if you
And let
found
me
an
say,
My
Ethiopian
friend,
skull
my buddy.
in Europe, it would read as a white skull because of the skull shape. But
okay,
those
I want to
people
move to
clearly aren't.
Africa.
I don't know that that's what he meant though, but I
yeah,
do
No,
know
he's
that
gone, so he might have been. But
there's no
though,
mountain
ma'am.
ranges in the
I
rainforest.
will
I
say
know that
this.
much.
By me being from New Orleans and southern Louisiana, I heard the brother say they got people that think like he do, even though I'm a very dark person. New Orleans was a melting pot with Native Americans and slaves. They actually helped free the slaves and actually helped the slaves take over New Orleans twice. I heard the
that's
brother
a
say,
fact. That's a fact.
right.
That's
So
a
we
fact.
have a great relationship with Native Americans throughout the South, starting
Yes,
way
they
back with
do.
the
No,
Buffalo
not throughout the
Soldiers.
South. Really, yeah, no,
We
really throughout the South. You're right. You're right. You're right
Right,
about
all
that.
the way up to
Actually,
the Carolinas. So when I
you're
heard
right.
the brother say, "Well, they enslaved," no, they helped us out, and we helped them out. And it's
That's
to
a
the point.
fact.
It got to the point that my great grandmother and grandfather, my grandmother parents were Native American. My grandfather parents were, descendants of black slaves. Her parents helped free his parents, and then and got them into safety, and the children married. We have a lot of that.
It's a
We
well
really
I,
do.
documented
You know why?
history.
Exactly. You know why? Because they had to kill the Indian. The Indians were not being captivated or captured. The Indians were fighting. They were trying to kill the white people. Well,
Yeah,
whatever they had, man.
to the death. So
Right.
there was
To the
always a
death.
revolt, and
To
we
the
Some.
death.
always had that. Then we get
To
into
the
the
death.
mixture of the Cajun
To
Creoles
the death.
and Spaniards and stuff. But they got some dudes that will say, "I am not black. I am Native American,"
well,
and
this is why
so
I
I
was
can
saying
respect it to
it's
a degree. You know.
so Pachi was saying I think we got off topic, and I really don't think it's off topic because it's kind of what I was saying earlier, Pachi, which is I see many different ways people try to disassociate from blackness. It's done in many ways. Now, the what you said is more a philosophical, argument, but I've also seen it done historically. Like, we are American Indian, we're not Native American. The original slaves were Native American. They were not from Africa.
They
And
could
and
say
then
it though.
bringing in the Civil Rights Act. So I've heard it done. I've heard separation from blackness done many ways, and that does kind of fit into the theme of the conversation, which is, are we really black? And I
Irene,
I
they could say
find that.
Irene. Irene,
Mhm.
in America, they could say it. They could say that, Irene. Even if they have black and have Indian, they can say that, Irene,
Yeah, they
because
can.
They can't.
If you ask
Let
someone
me.
who's
I want
Cajun,
to answer
But
the
I'm
who's
going
a
to
original
say
dark
that
question.
I
Cajun,
no, because we're not going to play the game like we don't know that Black people have been attempting to separate from Blackness so long that all of them are claiming anything that's not Black. I'm Native American, I'm mixed, I'm this, I'm that. Most of us have none of that in us. And that's
I
just the
got
fact. And
13
look,
kids.
if
I got
I'm not going
13
to
kids. I
claim it,
never slept with a
if
white
I'm
woman.
not going to claim Native American, and I have a whole uncle that lives, well, he's passed away on a reservation. You know what I mean? I certainly don't think somebody who literally, if we ran a genetic test, even though we're only looking at mitochondrial DNA, and I think that's a flaw because fathers contribute DNA too, um, is not going to have a stitch of it in them. I mean, let's not pretend like we don't know that in the Black community, you will have somebody that is Black as tar and clearly not a drop of anything in them, but pure, beautiful African say that I'm part Cherokee. Like we have definitely heard this
Let me.
before. And I mean,
well, I don't hear it very
even me
often.
as a
Not
person
down
from the
here.
Gullah Geechee Nation, even me as a person from the Gullah Geechee Nation whose ancestors lived for a couple of generations in the swamps with Native Americans, am not out here trying to claim Native American blood.
Irene,
I'm just
Irene, can I
not.
say something, Irene? You have to. Let
Well,
me tell you why. Irene, you have to. You know why, Irene? Because we fought so hard, right, for that. And then really think about it. We're in America anyway. We're not in Africa. We're not in. We're in America. Listen, we have to. And you know why we got to think like that? Because if we think like that, then we can. Then we, we'll be all right to risk our lives. You know what I'm saying? We'll be okay to risk our
let me
lives for each other.
let me say something too, because I wanted to get to the original question because I think it does tie into everything that we've been talking about. The original concept of blackness, if you remember, just like Irene said, uh, even prior to the late 50s and the 60s, our people were definitely trying to get away from the idea of being called black. Okay, we would fight each other, as Malcolm X said. Why did that change? Our
Well,
intelligent
right.
leadership. Hold on. Let me finish that. I just wanted to finish this concept real quick, and
Sure, man.
and
Sorry
this
about
and
that.
this answers the question of my concept of why I'm a black person. Is because the thing is, to me, black is not a color when we're talking about groups of people, and
Hmm.
and this is why. Because what's happening is our intelligent leadership that got us from that point in time, no matter how many mistakes we can call out they made, and they made a lot, but they got us from that point in time, and they grew our population to this point in time through their efforts of black and proud, making us identify and love our natural hues, our natural, the way that we come out
And
into this world.
brother, yes.
Okay, and I just want to finish this because I know it's a lot of different. So, and I'm gonna try to be real quick. It's just gonna be like at least 2 minutes, real quick. But the point is that is something we know happened. Okay, we a lot of times we go way back into Aboriginal days and all these other things, and that's fine. That's cool to do, but then we reject our ancestry that we know
That's because, well,
most of
you
our
got different
people.
ancestors. You got different ancestors, brother.
Oh,
That's
listen,
because of
Facts,
listen,
true
colorism.
that,
but hold on,
true
hold
that.
on, hold on, hold on. Let me finish this point. We want to reject our grandparents. These are people who participated in a similar history, participated in a similar struggle that we know we can connect to. Okay, these are the people that attended the
Gotcha.
rallies. They're the ones that had
I
the
got it right there.
riots. They're the ones that fought for the education. They're the ones that built the schools. They're the ones that created the memes, the black and proud. They did the work that got us here and grew our population from death plots and from slave plots. But
Okay,
we want to
now,
reject them, and we want to go way back to where we
okay,
were separated.
you said
And
it.
our ancestors, I mean, some of them come from Africa, many of them come from Native America. There were 5 civilized tribes. We know that the American government accepted in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 2. Native Americans are explicitly excluded as constitutional people. They were always excluded. and that ties into what Irene said with the Civil Rights Act that she pulled up there. They Indians are always betrayed. Their treaties are not honored. It's the same thing. The
brother.
same thing with Justice Taney when he
Okay,
said your rights are up to us whether we want to give them to you or not. You see what I'm saying?
I have to
So
say
I'm
this,
saying
man.
to us
Before,
as a black person, as a black
glad you said
person,
that. Glad you said that.
our people defined black, and they took care of a lot of these arguments that we want to have. And if we don't
Okay,
build upon, if we keep undermining the legacies that we are given, if we keep undermining our legacy, then what we do
all right.
is we're just destroying ourselves. We're just
Stop it right
destroying
there.
any progress
Stop it
that we
right there.
make.
Stop it right there. Stop it right there. Listen,
Reem,
and I
before you say anything, I know I'm so sorry. I just wanted to address freedom over equality and some of what you guys are talking about. In fairness, Pachi, who was the inspiration for this conversation, doesn't
yes,
care
ma'am.
what outside people think about us. He's concerned with how the identification of blackness causes us to see ourselves. So I just wanted to throw that out there because his
Yeah,
original
and I was
argument
going
has
to
Yes,
actually
nothing to
ma'am.
do with.
correct him.
Matter of fact, because you said that, now I'm gonna say one other thing before I say what I'm about to say. So I was raised by a black woman, actually, right? I was raised by a black woman. My stepmother abandoned me when I was 3 years old. I was raised by a black woman. But listen, let me tell you something. The reason why that's the case, man, is because of colorism. We tear each other down, man. And that's why you said what you said. It's because I understand that. And we don't have a nation to go back to. So yes, the only nation that the only nation we can go to is Ghana or anywhere in Africa, brother. I know that,
No,
man,
no,
because they did a
it's
number.
not
They did a
true.
number. Listen, I know people want to go back to Africa. Listen, I know people want to go
No,
back to
I'm not saying
Africa.
doing that,
I
and
want
that's
to go
why I
there.
wanted to kind of.
So,
I
bro,
don't, I
of
don't,
I
course.
do
because we
not
do.
want to go back to Africa. Oh, whoa,
I want
whoa,
to
We are
whoa,
listen.
no,
working
You know
here.
no.
what I want? You know what I want?
I'm with you
Honestly,
with
you
that
know what I
though,
want?
I
Don.
like
Listen,
I'm good
America.
right here.
you know
Don't
why?
get it
No.
twisted. I'll visit, but
All
I'm not
right,
trying to
listen.
move to Africa. Y'all are
Listen,
tripping
the
out
reason why,
here.
We are
this is what I
building
I'm
want.
not
This is
saying
what
something
I,
we're not
anything's wrong with
recognizing.
Africa. I'm
this is
not
what
saying
I'm
anything's
saying.
wrong with Africa.
A
I'm
lot
just
of
trying to say, like,
Africans
I'm
don't
not
like
going
live
us
in
in
a
the
there.
nation.
beginning.
I'd rather live in a
I'm
nation
not
where there's
going
Well, it's
only
not
my
that they
people.
don't
there.
like
That's
us.
what I'm
That's not
saying.
why I want
That's
to
what
go
I'm saying.
back.
Hold on,
It's
hold
just
on.
because we are a
I'd rather
special
live in a
people
nation
here.
where it's
We're
only my
special.
people. What was I don't like,
That's
brother. I
just
don't like. To me, it'll be a better world, right? It'll be a better world if we live in a nation amongst our own kind, like our own people, man.
actually that's
Honestly,
where we're heading toward. The trends are heading towards that. If you look at
that's
the
all
trends,
I'm
this is
saying,
what I'm
man.
saying to you. Listen, this is what I'm saying to you. If we keep these things that we are, like you said, they did a number on us. It took generations, but as we're looking at the trends from the enslavement process to the, all of this and where we're going right now, the trends are actually headed for a separation. We have enough numbers right now. If we wanted to identify, with a black
I
identity, and the
believe that.
black identity was taught to us. If you listen to what they were saying, people like Malcolm X and other folks who were talking, in Stokely Carmichael, the intelligent black leadership who used the black identity, they were saying that if you basically the original people of this planet would be a black people, and as that people traveled the planet, we have different black nations. So of course some of us would come to the Americas. We'd be on the islands, Pacific Islands,
I agree
and
with
other
you. It's just a matter
places.
of time.
But
And I
Oh,
agree
wait,
with
before
you.
you
Just a
Let me
matter
tell
of
you
but
continue,
something.
wait,
time.
Let me tell you
you
if
something.
you
guys,
dissect us,
you guys,
hold on, let me.
before you continue, can I just say, I wanted to address glitches
Yes,
over
man.
bitches. She said, it's only colorism if you are a dark skinned person and it's towards you. It's transference. I'm going to say this. Actually, I think colorism can apply to any color. And I think that is why Rashida Strober uses the term darkism, because colorism can be discrimination against any color. And so when lighter skinned people or anybody is claiming it, I understand why she says it's not colorism, it's darkism, because it's discrimination against darkness. It's not discrimination against color in general.
Right,
And
correct.
so I
Raji
guess
Harris,
I
I
never
agree with you,
actually
Raji
understood
Harris.
that
But
until like really recently, and your comment just made me think of it again. Now I understand why she tries to make a delineation between colorism and darkism.
Miss
and I
Irene, I'm
can
like
understand
Raji
that.
Harris.
Well,
I don't like America. Miss Irene, I'm like Raji Harris. Vladimir Putin said one
Well,
thing.
what I'm
This
saying
black
too,
chick,
what I'm gonna say
you know,
too
a
is,
black
I
girl did an
think that the
interview on this
goal of
guy.
any
Whites need to
conversations that
go
we
back
have, it
home.
should not be to divide our numbers. It should
White
not be
people,
pit us
white,
against each other
this is what they
because
trying to do. They want black people to live down
Pachi,
south.
wait, Pachi.
Yes.
Huh?
This is your fault.
How is it my fault?
What? Are you serious?
I'm asking a legitimate question.
You don't know. How is this a legitimate
well, it's not his
I've
fault.
question?
been I've been quiet the
Yo,
majority of the
listen, why
time.
I can't even
I'm
say
saying this
nothing,
whole
man?
conversation is your fault. You
Well,
started
no,
this
No,
I
last
did
night.
hear him earlier.
I feel the
It did
conversation has
inspire me to call in.
drifted
You gotta
to
understand.
other
You
things
gotta
that
understand.
I
What?
It's
wasn't
gonna be a
Okay,
discussing.
lot
so
of
how? Because
bloodshed.
they're
It's
talking
Well,
gonna be a
about.
lot of bloodshed.
Wait,
It's gonna be
they're
a lot of
talking
I'm
blood.
talking
about.
about what he was saying.
Wait, Pachi, they're talking about if we are black. So how is it
All right.
drifted? I think what
I don't
I don't
understand what
think you
y'all talking
realize.
about,
I
man.
realize the Pandora's box of saying we should not consider ourselves black. Because when people nod their heads and agree with that, they're agreeing for many different reasons. What are your thoughts on like? Because you've been exposed to
My
many
thoughts are
people who
this.
also don't identify as
Let me
black.
tell
And
you
what are
something.
your
My thoughts
thoughts
are
on
this.
that?
This is my thoughts. This is my thoughts.
No, I meant
Y'all
Pachi's.
did civil
Wait, no, I
rights.
meant Pachi's
Y'all
thoughts.
never went to war. Y'all never went to war with the white people. Y'all went to
Wait,
civil
no,
rights.
wait. I'm curious
You went
about
to civil
Pachi's thoughts.
rights.
Pachi, what are your thoughts on like everything you're hearing and the many reasons people
Y'all
don't
never
consider
went to war.
themselves
Y'all
black?
never went to war. Y'all had civil right movement. Y'all never went to war. You had a civil right movement. That don't mean shit.
But Reem, you're
Going to
not
war.
Pachi.
We
I'm
we
understand.
went
Yeah,
to
that's
war.
Wait, can
We
you guys
did.
not hear me?
not like us.
Can I be
Yeah,
heard?
yeah. Hold
Yeah,
on.
I
Let
just
But you guys,
Pachi.
none
She
of
Yes,
you
we
guys
wants
can
are
hear
Pachi to
you.
talk.
Pachi.
She wants
Not,
Pachi to
I'm
talk.
asking Pachi.
everybody cut
Yeah.
me off. Everybody cut me off. So go
Oh,
ahead,
I'm
man.
sorry, Reem. Pachi has not spoken for a
Of
while.
course.
Can you speak and then
Why
we
not?
can be quiet so that you can speak?
I never finished my statement. So can I say what I want to finish
Go
real
ahead,
quick?
Reem. Yes, for sure.
All I'm saying is this, man. All I'm saying is this, man. Man, honestly, man, we have to build allies. Okay, we got to build allies with the Chinese people. Those that they got the resources, they got nuclear bombs, they got a military. We got to build allies with these people, man. And honestly, you got China's a huge country, so yeah, you got racist people that are there. But you know what? A lot of Chinese got wide noses, man. A lot of Chinese, like China Mac. China Mac is a blood. He's from New York. He loved black people. He loved Puerto Ricans. You know what I'm saying? We got to build allies, man, because we got one common enemy. And honestly, they not our enemy if we could do it politically. But we're at a time that everyone understands we might not even have to go to war. We just
How
need to
you
keep
build? How you make
putting it out
allies
there.
with people that don't like you?
Okay, a friend, a enemy of your enemy is what?
It's supposed to be your friend, but or your ally, but that's not how they seeing it, fella. You know, I can tell you that now. I
Okay,
mean,
wait. I thought we agreed that Pachi was going to answer my question now.
Go
I'm
ahead,
done,
that's
Pachi.
baby.
good,
I'm done
Pops.
already.
Yeah,
Can
Pachi.
you repeat the question?
My question was, I knew it was going to be a proverbial Pandora's box because lots of people will jump on board with the we're not black conversation, but for like many different reasons. You were coming from a philosophical place of the word has a negative connotation and somehow like relieving a person of the burden of carrying the negative tropes that come with the identification is liberating for people. But then when you throw that out into the ether, you see what flips back. So what are your thoughts on it at this point?
Well, the overall thing I grabbed from the conversation that everyone else was having was I don't know how we got on the Native American. I don't know where that stuff came
Because he
from.
was saying he's not black. He's an American Indian.
Well, that's fine, but I'm saying, well, this is what I'm saying. The conversation is open for everybody, and maybe that was the issue. Then if you don't identify, like for me, like I said, I don't call myself that for multiple reasons, but I grew up around nothing but black people. So I know why they do things that are good or bad. And I know that I've helped. So I'm trying to help more. It's because I care. If you're not saying you're black, and I'm not saying he don't care about black people, but it's just like I don't know where the Native American thing, because if you're just trying to help black people, it wouldn't matter if you're Native American. Because I think that's the ultimate point of the conversation, to help people. That's why I was having the conversation.
Mm.
So I mean, I did I answer your question or did I
I
kind of
mean,
go
yeah,
off?
but I'm wondering, like, do you realize, and I mean, I guess this is why I pushed back against it so hard when you brought it up last night, and I thought it was worth a conversation today, is when we tell people, okay, open up the conversation about not being Black. I said to you early in this conversation, before so many different people came on the panel, we've had so many people from the young lady onward who have come on the panel who also didn't identify as Black. But did you, I don't know if you picked up on it. A lot of it was, I'm not saying that young lady in particular, but I'm saying a lot of that energy vibed to me as a dislike of being Black and just wanting to identify as anything that was other than Black. And that's why I said, I think it is the mindsets of people more than anything. And it's weird to me for us to step forward and say we don't identify as Black, but then clearly we do, because when it comes to our community and our conversations, we're in Black spaces. So on some level, we do comprehend that we are the same, right? On some level,
Well, no, I
that's
wouldn't
being
say that
acknowledged, right?
I wouldn't say I'm the same. Because just because I didn't ask to be born, I didn't ask to be born in the community I was born in or the country I was born in, and I wasn't asked to put a label upon me. But I grew up around great people. I grew up around bad people, and I care about both of them. So if I feel I can help with something, then I will. It doesn't mean that I, in general, agree with the ways that most of them behave, because I don't. Not the ones I grew up around particularly, but I
But you're
still
not
love them.
casting off any other label. You're not casting off the American label. You're not casting off the label of a
Well,
man. I don't know if
I'll
you're
tell you
tall or
why that. I'll
short,
tell
but
you
are
why
you
that is.
casting off the tall or short label? Like, you're only casting off Black. I could see if you just were like, I'm not going to be labeled across the board.
I'll
I don't
tell
want to
you
be
why.
called anything. I just want to
Um,
be Pachi, but you're saying I don't want to be labeled as Black.
I wasn't saying I don't. I said I don't label myself that. If you call me that, I'm not going to take offense. I'm going to respond. But what I'm saying is like, all right, for example, the American. Well, that goes to nationality, and that's solely based upon where you're born. Now, that's an agreed upon thing among people. Your nationality is where you're born, your nation. If you don't want to agree to that and you don't want to do it, then you don't have to. I know people born in America, never left America, that claim other nations and they never been there. I'm not now. That doesn't make sense to me, but I'm not going to argue with them.
Yeah,
Right. True that.
but effectually in life, they can't operate like they're from those nations, right?
Of
They're not
course
going to get a
not. It's just
passport from
like
that
this.
country. Nobody's going to view them as that. Like, they're going to still be categorized as what they are. And that's why I said, can you, and that brings me into the other aspect of what you were saying. You were like, I want to confine the conversation to our tropes and our ideologies about Blackness. And then remember earlier I asked, but I threw it out there in the air, but nobody's really responded to it yet. Is it possible to separate our views of Blackness from the views of Blackness that the world imposes on us, kind of like the nationality thing? You can claim whatever nation you want, but your view of your nationality is irrelevant when the world imposes a view on you. So can
Well,
those two things be
Six Ella
separated?
the
And
Great
and if not,
said that we
isn't
look
the
weak.
case to deal with the mindsets of the people who are imposing negativity on Blackness?
you can
I need to get my
change,
own channel.
but it's I care about changing the person, the individual mind, because in life there are just some people you can't change, you can't reason with, and some people you might even have to fight and kill. I mean, just the reality. So but you have to change the individual and give them confidence and give them a reason to fight for something, and not just say, well, I'm oppressed and therefore I'm going to be forever oppressed because I have a label called Black and I'm Black, so I'm just going to be this way. And that's how a
We
lot of people
gotta
feel.
we gotta start doing what they do, man. White people, they when they look at us, man, they be looking, that weird look. We need to start looking at every white. We need to not give white people the benefit of the doubt, spiritually or physically, man. We need to stop giving
Exactly.
white people the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly. And the thing is, this is what I wanted to say, and the reason why I called in was because of Pachi's statement that for him, Black equates with negativity and hardship. And I like what you said to him, that it depends on how that. A lot of times, the way that words are programmed to us, personally, because words have a dictionary definition, but then of course they have a personal definition based upon your life. But the thing is the way that black that not only that I study, but also the way that it was, I think is a good way, is that it is original. It signifies that we are from the original family of the planet. And I don't understand why people believe that being of the black original community of the planet means that you have to say that you're not Native American. If you are, you can be black and Native American. If you're an African, if you're Nigerian, you can be a black Nigerian. If you're an American, you can be a black American. I mean, black is just saying that we are from that original group of people. We are a people that is capable of producing every hue, every color on the planet. That's the type of people that we are. And we are going to have the various, especially in America, because of our recent history, we're going to have various skin tones and colors because of our experience. But that experience made us a unique people. Okay. But that's the reason why I say I don't want to go back to Africa, because to me, we're literally a new group of people. I mean, we know some of our origins. Some of us know splits of our origins and everything, but not just our genetic origin, but the common ancestry that most of us in Black America share, the history. All these things combine to give us a certain lineage. And as we grow over time, we will start to look similar. If we're comparing ourselves to Indians or Chinese people, these people have been in the same geographical areas for thousands of years. So they develop a similar look. But we kind of just got mixed up because of recent history. So of course we're going to have a variety of look. And so, that's all I'm saying is that that's what black is to me. I mean, it's not something that you choose.
Can I
You're
just say
born in
something
that
right quick?
lineage. You're born in that
Sure, man.
lineage. And it's just something that you have the right to claim. Now, if you want to say that you're not black, I mean, you can say that. But internally, you definitely have a genetic and a lineage right to just identify yourself as a black person. You're not Rachel Dolezal. You're not China Mac. You're just going to say I'm black. You see what I'm saying? Because they have a completely different history, a completely different lineage.
And you
And
know why?
that's what
Because
black is.
and you know why?
Can I
Because
just say
they
something?
either called you, they either said either you're Indian, you're black, and we never even thought about it like that because we were considered what Indian something Cherokee tribe whatever.
See, I
They brought
don't
that
like
out. Yeah,
when we
they
let
did
the
that.
United States government and their laws define blackness. Because I mean, if you
African.
look at every indigenous group of black people on this planet has a black concept. I mean, even the Native Americans, the Aztecs, they have a god. I forgot what it's called, Tezcatlipoca or whatever it's called. But this is a black god.
You got,
So
and it's fucked up because they
this is
did a number. They did a fucking number, man. That's why we gotta stick together, man. We gotta stick together, man. No matter that, no matter what, man. We gotta. They did a number, man. They did. Listen, the fentanyl that they trying to kill these white people with fentanyl and the spiritual warfare. Yeah, that worked. Yeah, a lot of white people died because of spiritual warfare. Yeah, a lot of people died because of fentanyl. Yeah, a lot of white people has been watered down because of black people of fucking white women. I mean, having sex with white women. Yeah, but that's still not enough, man. They did a number, man. They did a big number, man. Big time, man.
Rozzy, what were you gonna say?
Yeah. How you doing, Irene? How you doing?
Hey, Rozzy,
You know.
aka Bismarcky.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But I just wanted to come up and talk about this stuff a little bit because as I'm sitting back and listening to this conversation, it gets real funny
because it's so crazy how people will say that we're Native American, and you have some black people say that we're Israelite, we're this, we're that,
You're Ethiopian.
everything except being African descent.
Exactly.
Everything except that.
Exactly.
People say we're Native American. If you're Native American, okay, cool. But to
But
say
they
that,
are. He might be. He might
but
be though, man.
hold up. I just came up. Y'all had like an hour to go. Y'all been talking for like 2 hours straight. Let me go. The 45 million Negroes here in America, I think it's like 45 million, right? These Negroes here are African descent. They came here either through, you know, migration
Indian.
before
They're mixed.
slavery, or
They're
they
mixed.
came on those, what I mean? Because black people came here before colonization, okay? But most of these Negroes are descendants from chattel slaves.
Bro, you're not
Most
from
of them.
Houston. You're not from Louisiana. You're not from Houston. Those black people are mixed with Indians.
Say that one more time.
A lot of black people in Texas and Houston and Dallas, Oklahoma, a lot of them black people are mixed with Indian, man. If you're from the East Coast, it's different. But if you go out west, if you go to Louisiana, if you go to Oklahoma, Omaha, Nebraska, Texas, a lot of black people are mixed with Native Americans.
But you,
I really,
well,
I don't know that a lot of Black people are. I think, I think a lot of Black people want to be. I do think in the southern
I
states we
think
have some admixtures. We have the Creole people, things like that. But I mean, they are the minority, and a lot of people are claiming that who don't have any mixed
it
ancestry
depends on where you
whatsoever.
at.
I mean, who aren't above the normal 25% admixture. Let me put it that way. So I agree there are
Irene,
populations
you ever
out
been to
there.
Omaha, Nebraska? You ever been to Houston? A lot of the black
but
people
look,
are.
can I just say this?
If they're not dark as purple, if they're not dark like almost purple, then they're mixed.
Okay,
Okay,
can
so
I just
yeah,
say
that goes
this?
into the all Black people are mixed thing. Because if that's the case, I'm mixed. Do you follow what I'm saying? Like, that's why I said I don't think many Black people are clocking above the 25% admixture that is common for Black Americans. I think that's where the admixture
Yeah,
is
the
gonna
percentiles
cap
got
out
all
out.
broken
Yeah.
up. Yeah, it's not like 50-50. It's not like, it might not even be 75-25. It might be 60-40. It might be 70% 30%, but it might be a lot of the time it's
I
sixty
think on
forty.
average they cap out at 25%. Like
I
Black
think on
American people
average,
who don't have like a grandmother or like a parent, or you know what I'm saying? That
no,
is
no, no. I think on average is probably 40. Remember, because all right, it could be a Indian and black home, and then another Indian. I think it's probably, remember, it's mixed. So it's probably about 30. It's probably about 40%. It's probably about 40%.
no, no, not 40%. No. No, 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 no. Not 40. Not 40. I
Yeah,
mean, you
yeah.
can have a biracial person that has that
Well,
admixture.
we're in 2020. We're in 2020 now.
Yeah.
It might be 40. It might
I
be
know.
45. It might be 42% now. But it might be
No, no,
42%.
no. That's at that point you're talking a biracial, like literally a person who has a Black parent and a non-Black parent. Do you know what
Does
I'm
any
saying?
does anyone notice that there is no concrete meaning to any of this? There is no
Well, because
definitive answer.
Can
Well,
I
we
just
that's
know
what
ask
that
a
I
we
was
know
question?
getting
that
at earlier.
there is a concrete answer, and I gave it earlier. When you say Black, what you picture in your mind is what Black is, and that's a person with dark skin.
Well,
That's a person with dark
well,
skin.
That's on the
It's
individual
not about
level. That's how you
admixture.
picture it.
It's not about admixture. It's not in my opinion, blackness is not about admixture. And I guess we can give our closing stuff too. But in my opinion, blackness is not about admixture. It's not about culture. It's about dark skin. And I don't think, like I said, I don't believe in the concept of race. I'm not particularly attached to the word black, but I choose to use it because it very easily identifies a group of people. And
Think
there's
about it
work
like
that
this.
needs to be done for and among that group of people. So,
Irene, think about it like this: the Bloods and the Crips. The Crips come from the Black Panther. The Bloods come from the mixed people. So Bloods, traditionally Crips and Bloods, the reason why Crips and Bloods is a big thing is because Bloods are actually more Native American, more mixed. But that think about that. Just think about it like that. The Crips and the Bloods. Think about it like that.
The one thing I know about
I mean, I don't
slavery,
think
man.
mixed people and black people are beefing like that though.
They're beefing like that in Cali.
But
Yes, they
but
are. They're
I am
beefing like that in
interested in
Chicago.
everybody. I am
Chicago,
interested. Wait, I am interested in everybody kind of just giving their, because we've been up here 3 hours, y'all. We gotta kick rocks. But I am interested in
Damn, I
everybody's
just
like
came out.
final thoughts.
the
Although
war, the
Kaki, I
war
worry
in
about giving you a
Chicago,
final thought because we
the
see how
war in
this went. We'll
Chicago.
be
Do you
having a
know
whole new live tomorrow.
I'll go
the
last.
war that's in
I'll go last.
Chicago? The
The
war
the
in
one thing,
Chicago is between black
Wait,
people
no, can
versus
we can we
black
can
and
we I was
Indians.
asking for people's like closing thoughts.
All right,
Reem, do you want
okay, so
I'm done after this. I'm done after. Let me say this, and I'm done. The
Yeah, go ahead,
war,
Reem.
the war in Chicago is
Hmm.
between people, ancestors that come from Alabama and Mississippi. Mississippi people are more mixed with Indian. Alabama people are just more straight up black. The war in Chicago is between blacks that are mixed with Indian and people that are black. The war in California is between black people that are mixed with Indian and people that are black. That's what the wars in California and Chicago are all about. Man.
Huh. I don't know anything about those things, so I can't say. But that's interesting. That's what your closing statement is it? Reem? Reem? Oh, I guess that really was.
No,
Okay.
no, no,
Thank
no. I stepped away. I stepped away from the mic. Say that
Oh,
again.
I'm like that. Is that the last thing you want to say, like your closing comment?
Yeah,
Okay.
the last
Okay.
thing I want to say. No, 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 no. The last thing I want to say is that the wars in Dallas, Texas, like how Mo 3. Remember, Mo 3 got killed in Dallas, and Trap Boy Freddy, he a black dude, but he mixed with Indian. The wars in Dallas, the wars in Houston, the wars in Chicago, the wars in California. All them wars are between black and Indians versus black people.
Interesting. Super Mike, what are your final thoughts?
yo, man, I tell you,
Okay.
yo,
Super.
You want to go? I mean, I will let Raji
No, go
go.
ahead,
He
Super
seems
Mike.
like he
It's
was.
cool.
Okay, I'll finish off then. This is what I wanted to say here is I do agree with Poch, was it Pochware?
You
Pochware.
just call me Pachi.
But a Pachi. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. You know you make some very logical arguments, very logical statements, but I think they actually subtract from gaining our group power, and which I think if we are going to be a group on this planet, this is the objective of any group on the planet is to obtain the power to not only control its destiny but to protect its gains. And I think that it cannot be done in one generation. And if the next generations uh, throw away uh, a unity builder, because you have to have numbers, so black, whether we like that term or not, because Moore was out before Moors in black. The Moors had their chance to try to give us their identity, but took. Black took. So the global family accepts black, you know, and I think there's some very good reasons for that, and we went over some of those reasons. But my reason ties into just universal laws because it is the original community of the planet, and that has nothing to do with pain and suffering. It's just because this is something that we can claim as a group all over the planet. And so I think that the black identity is I am attached to it. I'm not attached to the English language of black. I don't agree with uh, the English definition of black because it is coming from an enemy language. So the etymology in English would be negative because we were fighting them for, millennia. But like I said, if you can look in many different indigenous cultures, they have a black concept, and it's most of it's positive. So this is the reason why I like black, and I think that it took all over the world. If it's negative to you, if it's a negative terminology to you, I would just ask, maybe you consider, you know, trying to look at the perspective of the people and the positives that it could be, because like I think Irene said earlier, facts are facts, and but we can have whatever perception we want of the facts. And I think if we choose to have a positive in a building perspective, we have a good foundation in this black identity to build something, that is a little stronger than what we had when we came in. So that's pretty much my final thoughts.
Thanks so much, Super Mike. Javier, are you really there, or is this the phantom you? Oh, you're really there. Okay.
Nah, I'm here. You're good. Yeah, I was just listening. No, I mean, I think everybody should do whatever works for them. Everybody obviously definitely has a different idea of how life should go, or if they want to be considered black, or what black is to them. Um, you know, that's really all. If you want to go with that, do what works for you. What works for
It's
you may
deeper
not
than the
work for the
color,
next
yes, sir.
person.
Okay, and let me just say this, man. Before I go, man, one thing I'll say, man, me, I really don't care if you call yourself black, Moor, Israelite, whatever. As long as you know who your people is, and as long as you ready to network and build with this so-called black woman, and as long as you love your people, that's really all that matters. The one thing I know about slavery has really psychologically damaged the original people of the planet Earth. Like, it really did its bad, man. Like, it stripped, we got our names and language stripped away from us, and that really psychologically messed us up. And we, to this day, we don't even know who we are and where we come from. Okay, we need to just accept that the Negroes here in the United States of America are African descent. Okay, you could look at your phenotype, look at your hair, look at who you are. The evidence is written in your face. You got Africa written all over you. You're African descent. You're not no damn Native American. And if you are Native American, you're mixed with it. But you're mostly African descent. Period. There's no denying that. Okay, so we need to just accept who we are. Once we accept who we are, we will love ourselves, and then the chips will fall where they may. And then we'll be able to unite, and really, black men will really become the world leaders of this planet and really do something really great. But it don't really matter what you call yourself. If you don't want to call yourself black, so be it. As long as you know who your people is, okay, that's all that matters. If you know who your people is, that's all that matters. Everybody everybody don't like to be called black. That's okay. Me, I don't mind it. I don't mind people calling me African American. Some people don't like African American. Some people just rather be called black. Some people rather just be called Moors. That's all right. As long as we can work together, as long as we know that we don't be on board with each other. We on the same team, baby. That's it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you so much, Rozzy. I appreciate that. That was very down the middle and fair. Pachi,
Yes.
this is literally all your fault. Like,
I didn't know about letting other people in, but I'm glad it happened because again, this, what we heard was a bunch of people that identified as black. I believe I was hearing people that said they weren't black, and then they said they were, and then they weren't. I don't know what was going on after a while. But the point is, you had all these people who claimed to be this one thing. This one thing is a label. A label has to have a meaning. And if the meanings contradict, there's multiple meanings, they all contradict one another meaning. Again, I go back to children because it starts with children. Imagine being a child and you're calling yourself black because your parents said you were black, and you look around and you hear all these different things that are black, but they're all called the same thing. They're all contradicting one another. This is confusing. It was confusing to me, and I'm a 26-year-old grown man. I didn't know what was going on. So I just let it ride. And people want to be unified. You can't unify if everyone's on different pages, which is why, again, there's going to have to be, if you want to keep calling yourself black, that's fine. You're going to have to separate from other people that call themselves black and let the world know you are not associated with them, because if you don't, everyone's going to confuse you with them. And even if you don't care about everybody else, people within your own group are going to confuse themselves with them, because they're going to say, well, they're black too. They call themselves black. What's the difference between us? And you better hope your teaching as a parent overrides the world. This is why I said this stuff is dangerous. It wouldn't be dangerous if it was handled better, but clearly it hasn't been handled better. But this has been going on before I was born. So it ain't never been handled right. So at this point, I say this respectfully, everyone in here is my elder. I sympathize because I wasn't around during the time, but I heard it was bad, but the job was done bad. Doesn't mean you don't need people's help. Doesn't mean that, but I feel so many people have an attachment to that term, and they can't even fathom, like even people that say, man, what you said made sense. It's logical. I see it, but I can't let it go. That's a problem. I know it's not real, but I want to hold on to it. That doesn't make sense. I know Santa Claus ain't real, but he's still there. No. So I just ended by saying this. God bless everyone. Thank you for letting me come
No, you're
on.
not getting off that easy, Pachi. Nice
Well,
try,
I didn't want to accidentally start another conversation.
because we know you'll do that. But that's okay. No, you're not getting off that easy though. So I'll say this. In fairness, the identification of who is black has never been left in the hands of black people. And it's always been imposed upon black people. And we've kind of gone along to get along. So I think there's validity in what you're saying and defining who that is. Because really, everybody and anybody has been shoved into the black category. And that's not any work that we did, which brings me to what I was asking earlier, is this idea that we can deal with our conceptions of blackness without including the outside world, when the outside world is what has ultimately defined blackness. The outside world is who's dumped and grouped a bunch of people together and slapped a label on them. We didn't do that to ourselves. We didn't collectively get together. So when we say, it's undefined, it's this, it's that, it's like that's no doing of our own. That's not work that we did. It's not the sloppy job we did. We had nothing to do with it.
Well,
We
I would
didn't.
challenge that it is some blame, because I'll put it to you this way: for those who realized it, and that might be very few, and didn't do anything, then you participated by not acting. And in my lifetime, I can say that the black culture in America participated, because, like I said, when I was a child, Cardi B or anyone that would look like Cardi B would not be considered black. Today, she's black. Fat Joe is black today, was not black when I was a
Was
child or a
were they
teenager.
were they not black back then? Because I've always, being older than you, right? Old enough to be your mother, right? I
Hmm.
have heard all kinds of people lumped in with black people. Like literally, you could be literally look like something totally different and be still considered black. And you would get bullied if you said those people weren't black. Like, yeah, they're black.
That happened.
So
Eminem's black to a lot of black people. He can rap.
I mean, Bill Clinton was black.
Exactly, because he smoked weed see. Oh, this is a crazy thing. Bill Clinton was black because he could play the saxophone, which that's great to learn to play the saxophone. That's still odd to claim someone's black because they can play the saxophone. I heard black people say he was black because he smoked weed. That's weird. He's black because he slept with a woman in the Oval Office. That's just odd. And cheated on his wife. Why are you claiming that to be black? See, when you hear all this stuff and you're a little kid or whatever you are, that's weird.
Well, we
That's
know some of that
confusing.
is tongue in cheek. Nobody actually thought Bill Clinton was black. They were giving him an honorary black card, which is insulting to us
Who
as
else does
people.
that? Who everyone else that plays the race game or the color game? Who else does that?
Nobody does that. But the thing is, all people are not the same, right? All people are not the same. But I think while we don't have a term like black card, definitely there are black people who have been made honorary whites by the white community. They become the pet black person of that community. So we have seen um, all groups of people pet somebody that's outside of their group. Now, maybe we, being very flavorful people that we are, slapped a title on it and called it an honorary black card because that's the kind of stuff that, our people will do. We'll make something creative and interesting, and they don't do that. But that's not to say that we've never actually seen that occur before. We've not seen a pet be made out of somebody that is not a part of the community. I
Would you
agree
say
that Mhm.
would you say that other communities in general still put a boundary on those pets?
Um, yes. But this is what I'll also say. I'll say that there is confusion even among whites. What is white? Right? There are some people there. I'll never forget this. There's a lady, she's from the Caucasus Mountains, the European side of the Caucasus Mountains. And she literally was white people were saying she's not white. And she's like from the Caucasus Mountains, who were considered, she was Georgian. Apparently the pinnacle of white beauty according to their own standard, and there are white people saying she wasn't really white. There are people who are white that say the Kardashians are not white, right? There are sects of people, I mean, for a while the Spanish weren't considered white. So I think this idea that the term is ill-defined just amongst black people is very self-critical,
Oh yeah.
when the reality is that the term, I mean, there's some dispute in Asian communities about the validity of dispute in Asian communities about the validity of, the Japanese being pulled into that fold, or a lot of them don't consider people from India to truly be Asian, right? So I think it's not as clearly defined for other people as you might think, and I think it's not as clearly defined for other people because of the same reasons that I said, which is that it's a construct, and it's a falsity, right? But it's not a falsity of our making. And then I also want you to consider this, Pachi. Consider that different people cling to or release their constructs for different reasons. White cling to the white construct and they're protective over it because it gives them status and value. And black people, to juxtapose it, often are trying to discard that label because it devalues them. I don't know if you think any of those statements are fair.
I would say that that's probably true. I don't, like I said, for me, it was never a devaluing. It was just like I explained, the confusion of a term cannot mean everything and anything and nothing at all, because then it doesn't mean anything. It can't be everything. And black is
Mm-hmm.
everything according
Mm-hmm.
to the majority of people. That, like, I had an argument in college with my professor where he said that everyone originated from Africa and everything came from Africa. I don't know if that's true. I'm just listening to what he had to say. Then he goes on to say that white people stole everything. And I had a question. Well, if white people came from Africa because everything came from Africa, how could they steal? They're just using their ancestors' music. He got upset, even though that makes sense based upon what he believes.
Mm-hmm. No, I
Yeah.
agree with that. I mean, but that again, because this goes back to a comment she made about saying, I don't believe in it, but I'll hold on to it. And I think the nuance is that all humanity is related, right? Humanity is on a spectrum. There is no real division other than the ones we create. But because we create those divisions and those divisions are operational in our world and they have relevancy to how um, individuals on the planet engage each other, we do have to acknowledge them. We can't, it's not enough to simply pretend like they don't exist when those things are moving and effectual. And that's why I said, are we capable of isolating our independent opinions of Blackness and our place in that from how the world operates? Is that really a possibility? At some point, like the person who wants to be a different nationality but isn't, right? Or wants to be, I mean, honestly, I don't even believe in nationality. I believe that, the world is the earth and we should be able to move freely about the earth, right? I don't understand the concept of being micromanaged based on that nationality. But
Well, I'll ask
I
you
can
this.
say that and I can still say that I'm an American because my non-belief in nationality is not going to allow me to cross a border without my American passport, my
Well,
United States passport. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I,
So the
I
two things
yeah.
can coexist.
Well, I'll put it to you this way: when it comes to like nationality, I don't feel it's fair to compare nationality to race because, like I said, nationality way before any of us were born seems to be concrete, understood. I'm not
I
talking
don't know
about.
about that because going back to the Supreme Court case we were looking at earlier, any state can afford nationality to a citizen,
No,
but
what
their
I no what I
nationality
that
becomes,
no
yes,
no
but their
no what
nationality becomes into question once they leave the state.
no what I'm referring to is um nationality has to do with the nation that you are from. Now, of course, the people in the nation can claim you're not from here, even though you literally are. That's a little bit. That
No,
is a
what
part
I
of.
mean is it's not concrete because you have, for example, states like California who can confer citizenship on illegal aliens, for example. That is within their rights to do. And they're able to vote, sit on school boards, run for office, get health care, get driver's licenses, and it's legal until they leave the state of California, at which
But
point they're
that
going to get deported.
but they're not from they're not from the nation. That's not the same thing. That just means they have temporary citizenship.
But then this goes to, and this is why we had a civil war. Like I said, these things aren't as cut and dry as we make them. The United States is a union of several states that operate as countries. The federal government is over interstate commerce. The nationality of you being a Californian, and I'm sorry, well, we can call it a nationality or the statehood, but the states operate as nations. Being a California or a Texan is a separate thing from the ideology, and that's why some people will claim like you shouldn't claim to be an American citizen. You should always claim to be a citizen of your state. These are actually two different things, so it's not as cut and dry. And I guess that's what I'm saying. I mean, but that isn't that. I guess the reason I'm going here is that the nature of constructing social status and commentaries is that it is a construction. And so, therefore, it is always fluid and not concrete. That's the nature of the creation of something, right? Is that it can morph, it can change, it ends up not being concrete. Heck, we see that happening with gender, do we not?
I know the history behind the gender thing. That's gender is not fluid, as people say. It's not scientifically fluid. Gender stems from language. People use the language to manipulate science, to push drugs on children and sterilizing people. That's a
Go
little
back to the
different.
manipulation of language.
Well, there's actually a whole every these doctors. I think one of them name was John Money. He's pretty much like considered the head guy that was behind the whole trans thing back in, I think it was the 50s or something. But basically what he did was, because he had this idea that if you took a little boy and just raised him as a girl, he'd be a girl. So to basically trick people or to push propaganda was, he noticed in language is gendered. So if you can argue that gender and sex are the same, but gender they're the same technically because they are. But he was saying, well, you could choose your gender. You can't because gender and sex is the same. He manipulated it over time with other people who push, different scientific studies that were not scientific to say that gender is a fluid construct that you can just change and be whatever you want, and you can't. They've done studies proving that people who claim to be female or women that are men are still men in every other aspect, other than maybe if they had some surgery or something, or the fake hormones run through their blood. But that's a whole nother topic. I did a
I
lot of
mean,
research
well,
for
I
that.
think it's another topic, but not really. I guess what I was saying is there's fluidity in these things, and words can be used just like black or male or female and manipulated to mean whatever people want them to mean, right?
Only if
Based,
others
based
allow
on
it.
their personal agendas. Based
That's
on their
right. But
personal agendas.
if people don't allow that to happen, like, all right, for example, like I said, going back to just strictly American black. If American black people, let's just, I'm not trying to put a good or bad on it, but let's just say the law-abiding working class people said we're going to separate from the people not doing that are also black, and we're going to call ourselves something different. But the other people are saying, no, you're black like us, and there's an issue because now when things are trying to get done politically or whatever, that people outside that don't know what's going on in this culture is confused. Who are we really talking to? Are we talking to someone representing this side or that side? So you know what would logically happen? There would be infighting. And technically I wouldn't call it infighting because I mark off of your beliefs is what determine who you are as a person, not your skin tone. Your skin and your facial features don't really mean nothing. Everyone has family members that look just like your relative, but your relative is on some old other stuff and you ain't on that. You don't relate other than by blood. So you're not going to mingle. There would be infighting or there would be a fight. No different than if you say every white person's white, the whites fought each other. They fight each other all the time. When one group believe in one thing, another believe in another. If American blacks aren't going to fight, rather be themselves or other people, honestly, the all I can do then is just that's changing like the majority. Right now, I don't think that's really that's a mindset that most have. I'm trying to just find the ones I can't help that's looking for help and showing them another way.
I just realized that you have an accent.
Well, yeah.
I just realized that. So I think I know some place that we can end this on where we can definitely agree that at the very least, if you're going to embrace the concept of blackness, right? Or embrace identifying yourself as black, that there should actually be a definition to that. It can't be anything or everything, or it has no meaning. So there's no purpose in claiming something that's meaningless.
Yeah, it's like art.
Yeah. We can agree on that?
Yes.
For sure. I think that's an excellent place to stop. And I think that that is an excellent thing for all of you to consider. It can't be anything and everything. You can't go hard for something that has no definition. And right now, I have to agree with Pachi that it's not well defined. So, with that said, thank you so much, Pachi.
Can I answer one question that was asked to me?
Uh-huh.
Someone asked, am I for the black community? I am for everyone. I move more off of my belief in God and God, anyone that represents God people, or even if you don't, I feel I can help you, then I go with that. But I'm definitely for the black community in general, because I was raised in it. I was raised by people, good people. I was raised by people who I call them knuckleheads, that, they're good people, but they do things they shouldn't be doing for the right reasons a lot of times. So I do stand for them.
Yeah, no, he said yes. He said he is. He wanted to clarify he's for the black community, but that's not him being for the black community doesn't exclude him being for other people. But he's definitely for the community that he was raised in. He just said that. So we don't contort what he says. And I And I mean, I understand that and I don't disagree with it. So anyway, yes, if black is everything, then it can be nothing. And there's no point going hard on something that has no meaning. So maybe we need to start considering what the meaning is. And then we can, once we have it defined, decide, do we want to go hard for it? Right. um, at least know what you're clinging to, know what you're representing, know what you're saying when you say, "Are you for the Black community?" Define what Black is, and then we know what community we're talking about. I think that's a valid point, and I appreciate you coming through, Pachi.
No problem.
All right, bye, you guys. I'll talk to you later.